Good morning. We are going to open the public meeting for the business meeting for the Klickitat County Commissioners for March 26, 2024 morning session. Our apologies for being a little bit late. We were in an executive session in accordance with RCW 4230-110 Pren 1, Pren G to review the performance, discipline, and or qualifications of a public employee, and we ran a little bit over. So we are ready to start our session, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Jeez, if I can speak.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I need to add to the record that all three commissioners are present. Thank you.
Do we have anything else for the agenda?
Yeah, just for giggles, let's just for giggles, let's add Snowden rezoning to new business.
Do we want to, so we have, whoops. We have on here one add-on for the congressionally directed spending letter of support. Don't we have multiple letters? Okay. Madam Chair, is there anything else, Madam Chair? Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the business agenda with two add-ons, both under new business. Number one being the two congressionally directed spending letters of support and the Snowden rezoning.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None. The approval of the business agenda is passed. If we would take 1 second before the approval of the commissioner meeting minutes.
Come on, Kitty. Come on, Kitty.
I would like to go over some information. We've been, in the past, there was some deviation from process for, I did some research for the approval of the commissioner meeting minutes. And the process was set up that they were circulated, then came back after suggestions and were changed and then added into our meeting minutes. Legally, the process, and I've asked legal counsel, legally the process of the meeting minutes belongs that the meeting minutes belong to the clerk. And that's a separation of powers so that the clerk and her staff capture the information of the meeting and then they present what they've captured and they put it in the meeting minutes in the agenda. And then that comes up, and during that time, after our review, we have to talk about that in public if we'd like a change. And we discuss the change with our seatmates, we make a motion, and if everybody approves, then that changes the meeting minutes under the approval of the BoCC. But so to help with staff workload and direction and to keep that separation of powers so that staff captures the true intent of the meeting minutes and it doesn't have the appearance that personal things are being changed within the commissioners and then added to the meeting minutes. We need to change that working order so that the clerk and her staff capture, they present it in the meeting minutes. We present it, talk about it in the meeting minutes like we're going to do here in a second, and then approve or make a motion to change.
May I ask a clarifying question? From your conversations with the PA, I know in the past, at least when I was staff, the clerk of the board or the deputy clerk of the board would send the draft minutes out to the department heads, and then department heads would review it and make changes, based on that. Is that something that's still allowable? It just can't come in front of the BoCC?
And that's not allowable either. It's to be under the clerk and her staff to capture that. And there should be no suggestions or changes in those meeting minutes. That was an error to circulate it through the departments. That was an error at that time. And so it's gone downhill from them. It's been quite a few years
Yeah,
since
it's-
we did it in a legal process.
I guess I would add that I'm excited that if this is the direction the board chooses to go, because I do think commissioners should not be playing or changing or editing or rewording minutes secretly and not in front of the general public.
And I agree. And it isn't a decision of the board. It's actually a legality of how that process works and the authority of the clerk, and those minutes belong to her.
Didn't that come from, wasn't the original intent of the clerk that's elected is supposed to be the clerk of the board way back when, and that was an elected position and they had control over that?
I think you are correct, sir.
But it's still a defined duty of the clerk that's sitting with us.
Absolutely.
And that was just an error of staff back quite a few years ago that circulated it through all the departments. And then it got gathered back in and that stopped, and then it came to the commissioners, but that needs to stop too.
Right, but again, though, at this meeting, like I presented and printed out potential changes to the minutes. We still have that legal ability to make that. We are not
Yes, but we
required.
do it in if the announce of, okay, we're going to approve the commissioners' meeting minutes, then we have that motion, then discussion. And if there's a motion to change, we have to make a motion to change those during that discussion time. If there's an amendment to those minutes. Is that getting clearer? Just like a regular motion.
So so this is a change, right? So we can't make a motion to approve the minutes with an addition that somebody has written. You would have to make a motion to approve the minutes and then make an amendment to those and then go all the way through that process. How would you're the chair, so however you like it done.
It's required that we make the motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented by the clerk. And if we make the first motion, we have discussion, and during that discussion, if there's any changes for an amendment, that needs to be brought up then.
Okay, so I think she's procedurally correct. An amendment will be brought up to and attached to the main motion. Then there'd be a vote on the amendment first, and then the vote on the main motion.
If that's how we want to do it, that's fine. I just want to know
Have
the
another
rules.
suggestion?
We can do it that way. It's easy.
Okay, so do we want to move forward with the meeting minutes?
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from March 5th, 2024.
I will second for the sake of discussion.
Motion and a second discussion.
Which meeting minutes, the original meeting minutes or the edited meeting minutes are we making the motion to approve? Wasn't this the,
That was March 12th.
okay, March 12th, got it, March 5th, got it.
Okay. So since we're far past and it's March 5th, it's probably just motion, second and approval.
Yeah, I don't have any issues with the 5th.
I have no issues with the 5th.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, March 5th, approval of the commissioner meeting minutes passes.
I was, if I may, I was under the impression that we were going to be talking about the 12th minutes today, so I did not put that on the business agenda for discussion.
Or you can wait when we approve those next week and do it through proper process.
So discussing it today would not be proper process?
If I may, Madam Chair, the actual agenda that was sent out that is online, our blue card looks different. The agenda that was put online just says approval of commissioner meeting minutes as may be presented.
Okay.
So anybody, if somebody would like to make a motion on the March 12th minutes, we still could.
I agree.
Well, if that's how it's going to be played, I guess I would make a motion on the approval of the March 12th minutes.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second discussion.
Now I'll ask the question, are we approving the original March 12th minutes or the minutes that were edited by the board?
Well, I believe there was an edit handed to staff. And this is how this discussion came up for me about how proper process works with this. So if we're at that point, I think we should just go ahead and start with, if we want to amend the March 12th meeting minutes, I'd like to hear the discussion about it. Because
So,
I
so we're
heard-
going with the original draft that was written by them, not the edited draft that was
Correct.
edited by the Board of Commissioners.
Not the
Got it.
edited draft that was asked for,
Just wanted to be clear.
because we have not approved that edited draft.
With that, I'll call for a point of information. I will ask the parliamentarian or the chair. It is my understanding by reading the edited minutes, or the minutes, sorry, that the board chair ruled that my Snowden land use motion was out of order. In this case, what exact time frame is this board saying any item we take action on must be added to the agenda in order to not be out of order?
And is it in the meeting minutes that I called your,
It's
Out
in
of
the
order.
meeting minutes that you concurred with Mr. Anderson that my motion was out of order.
okay,
I may be able to fix this.
okay.
Before you, and this is.
Point of order. There's currently a point of information of which the board chair must respond to, according with Robert's Rules of Order, without other board members being allowed in the conversation until the ruling is given.
And I would like to ask for clarification from Mr. Anderson.
That would be out of order, ma'am.
Okay, ask me your question again then, Dan.
If I want to make a motion, when do I have, and it said that I have to have the item on the agenda to make a motion, to take action. When do I have to place that item on the agenda? Can I place it on in the morning like the additions that we just added on? Or do I have to place it on say Wednesday so it can be noticed to the public a week before? I just want to know
I
which
think
way the
either
board
one of
chair wants
those.
me to go.
With our working order currently, I think either one of those would be appropriate.
Either one of those, okay? That perfect for me. I just want to know how you want to run your meetings going forward.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
we have also added things to the agenda at other times. It just needs to be added to the agenda. Somebody needs to add it to the agenda so that it can be captured in the minutes.
correct.
So like, in the afternoon, we've had things come up the day of, we've added it to the agenda. It needs to be added to the agenda.
Correct.
But because the meeting is a regular meeting, it's been noticed, you can add things to the agenda at any time. You just have to make sure that you do it. If it's a special meeting, you cannot add anything to the agenda except for what you noticed
Correct.
on a special meeting.
Okay, so I guess I'll ask another point of information for clarification of what we just covered. As long as the motion is made to put it on the agenda and it's seconded and approved, then action or a motion can be made afterwards at any time, as long as it's been approved to put on the agenda.
Correct.
Okay, got it. But I just want to know how you want to run your meetings going forward. With that, I'll ask another point of information. The board has never allowed dissenting commissioners' opinions. And by the way, I would like to clarify for anybody listening that any of my comments are not directed towards staff or the people directing or doing the minutes. It's commissioner involvement in the minutes. The board has never allowed dissenting commissioner opinion or any commissioner's opinion as part of the official minutes in the past. So my point of information for the chair is, under your reign of chair, are we now going to change that policy and allow this board to put dissenting commissioners' opinions on the votes we take?
And I think I clarified that because I was seeing it that, I'm sorry, Dan, yourself was submitting things to staff in a way that was questioning of the meeting minutes. And so I reached out for legal counsel on how to properly take care of that. I think using proper process where staff has control and creates those meeting minutes for the public. And then we have open discussions for the public to hear what each commissioner would like to change if there is a suggested change. I think it's going to stop work and frustration for staff. And I think it's also going to have an open conversation for the public of which commissioner and why things are being asked to be changed.
Let me forward. So I would defend myself from the accusation that was made by the chair that I tried to add something to the minutes, because I did not try to add anything to the minutes. The minutes as written and presented to this board made the motion. All of this was from staff, that there was a motion made. Commissioner Christopher made a motion on a moratorium in township ranges, blah, blah. It had the vote. And then after that, it said, for reasons of location, private property rights, finding of fact, and the motion being out of order regarding agenda protocol is why you two voted no. I did not ask to add anything to the minutes. I asked for that entire piece to be removed from the minutes because it is commissioner opinion, dissenting commissioner opinion. So I'm asking this board if their goal is to, or not if their goal, but if their policy going forward is to allow dissenting commissioner opinion to be added to the minutes. I did not ask to change the minutes. I asked to remove commissioner opinion.
And I think that is your opinion of opinion, because my recollection was the discussion about factual issues, and each one of those are factual issues. And you were requested by the other two members of the board to please bring forward findings of fact if you're going to ask for something. So we don't have to say, you need to know XXX before we make this motion.
Okay, and that's fine. But my point is, the reason you voted no was, in your
fact.
opinion, those things.
No.
I'm not saying they're fact or
You're
fiction.
adding in our opinion. Those were factual content that we were missing from you in order to make that decision. And if you want to bring forward things, you need to have your homework done and bring those things with you so that we can be educated for what you're looking for in a factual manner legally with legal reference, so that we don't make an error. We can't just simply make a decision on a shotgun approach or a knee jerk.
So you're not calling any of those items personal opinion.
No, I'm not.
They're all factual.
Madam Chair, I would like to correct the record. Those are not commissioner opinions. That is what staff had written, in which you responded and then I responded and we sent to staff. That was not the commissioner's opinion. I did not write that in there. I made
But they
changes and I
made-
brought those forward. So let's just clear the record in that regards.
But they wrote that there because that was your opinion that you gave when you voted no.
They wrote that there because that's what they heard in meeting, but they did not add in the commissioner's opinion. That's your adding in the commissioner's opinion.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Is that, I guess for a point of information, just so I can, going forward on dissenting votes, if the commissioner then gives the reasons why they're dissenting on that vote, I would assume those then would be fair and go right into the minutes without editing too, right? Dissenting votes, opinion, is it going in?
I think it's going to change the whole term of the conversation if we start working in a proper order, to where if we're suggesting something, we either say, I'm suggesting I would like to do this, but I don't have a full packet available to give you the RCWs and things that go with it. Could we do a workshop on that and all of us work forward on this? Or if you're ready to bring it to the board in a work business session, bring what we're calling findings of fact, but explaining that to you, it's not findings of fact in the term that you use it with the planning department. It's putting your pieces together in a logistic manner so you can explain why the board needs to take an action, and you have the background and the legalities developed to stand behind you to do that.
Okay, as I, obviously am not getting anywhere with this board, I will hand out some Robert's Rules of Order for minute taking, and I will give them to staff. That specifically states minutes do not include discussion, personal opinion. And so if the board wants to include those things, they can just do so in violation of Robert's Rules of Order.
And again, I don't feel it's in violation. It actually was content that was spoken during that meeting of concerns of what needed to be thought out. And those were highlight pinpoints of what needed to be thought out. They weren't our opinion. Yes, Chief.
Madam Chair, I would apologize. When I made the statement that I found that these are out of order, according to Robert's Rules of Order, what I should have done was issued a point of order. And that point of order would have been that the motion is out of order, in which you would have had to rule. That is one way that we could have handled that situation. And the reason that I am proposing to make changes to these minutes is because that was definitely out of order. It was not added to the agenda. And there was usually, whenever we take a director comes forward, they give you, a background in which allows the minutes to be written so that at least it creates a situation in which people can understand where it's coming from. In this situation, it was out of the blue, a motion. The motion was also out of order, as you wouldn't make a motion to enact a moratorium. That would take a resolution, so it would be out of order in that context. A motion could have been made to add it to the agenda for next week. A motion could have been made to direct staff or planning staff to write a draft resolution for the board's adoption. But just making a motion to enact a moratorium is out of order in its own rights. And so I'm only trying to clarify that with my proposed changes that I submitted to my seatmates.
Well, I guess I would ask Commissioner Anderson, in order to be out of order, doesn't it have to be ruled out of order?
That is why I was clarifying in what I've presented to you is that I stated I believe the motion was out of order. Only the chair can rule something out of order.
Correct. And
Which
that's
is-
my point. It
which-
was not ruled out of order.
Which is again why the minutes need amended, because staff probably did not know that and could not know that when they wrote the original draft meeting minutes. Which is why it needs clarification. If I may, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I've presented both of my seatmates an amendment to the meeting minutes from March 12th for your review and discussion. I would make a motion for that amendment. If you'd like, did you bring your copy in?
Papers. And I'm not hearing a second from Mr. Christopher. Do you have comment or discussion? Where?
I
are we?
do have comment.
So we need a second.
You can step.
I
down.
will step down in second. So discussion, do you have a copy of Jake's?
This is obviously opinion that a commissioner wants to be put in the minutes. And again, I just handed you documents from Robert's Rules of Order that discussion and personal opinion is not to be in the minutes.
Madam Chair, may I
Yes,
respond? Madam
please.
Chair, I reviewed the actual video and only wrote what was actually said during the meeting.
You mean discussion?
I wrote what was stated
In
during
discussion.
the meeting,
In
and that has
discussion.
been put in.
And I would highlight that the first item, it says minutes do not include discussion. Second item, personal opinion.
So I feel like this has digressed into a folly, and I feel like we're discussing things that the public doesn't see or understand. Do we need to go so far as to read that statement so that they can compare it themselves, or look back at what was said before we choose to add that into the meeting minutes?
If you would like, I can read it.
I would like you to read it because I think it's factual. I don't think it's opinion. It was what I said last week.
It says, this is a motion from Christopher, second of Zoller. Commissioner Christopher made a motion to propose a moratorium on zoning changes in township ranges 311, 411 in the Snowden area until the comprehensive plan has been updated to address citizens' concerns. Yay, Christopher, nay, Anderson, Zoller, motion failed. Below that, it says Commissioner Anderson stated he believed the motion was out of order as to process and not adding the discussion to the agenda. He stated he could not vote on the motion without facts presented. Commissioner Anderson noted the Snowden and Dallasport areas were the most recent sub-area rezones completed. And then it says below that, Commissioner Zoller stated she would appreciate a workshop with facts from staff. She stated a moratorium in one area would slight the other areas. And then below that, it says the board agreed to schedule a workshop to discuss the comprehensive plan.
Okay, so I guess I will, in closing, those are your each personal interpretation of the facts of why you voted no on something. So if I vote no on the changes of these minutes and state why I personally believe as fact is the reason why we're having this discussion, I expect them in the minute.
Okay, so I'm going to step in the middle with my comments here. This is exactly why I reached out for legal about the meeting minutes and simply being routed through the county commissioners after staff is done. There's been several weeks it's been hard on staff. It's been offensive to staff for the work that they're doing and the quality they put into that work for the public. I believe at this point, it's clear enough that there's a difference here of what opinion is and what factual statements are made in the meeting. I think we should digress here, step back down for those meeting minutes and allow that the meeting minutes stay of staff as the clerk approved and created. And at this point, I think we should end this conversation about is it the 12th, March 12th meeting minutes, accept what staff created and move on. And next week, put it through proper process. Let staff create the meeting minutes. And if we have something to bring forward, we will bring that forward to the public so that we can move on.
Madam Chair, there's a motion on the table and a second, and we're in discussion. We have
Okay.
to vote on that before we move forward in any way.
And to continue discussion, I'm not asking to change minutes by staff. I'm asking for this board to stop changing minutes by staff. I'm asking for this board to not put personal opinion in the minutes and use the minutes as a political tool and just stick to what we talked about, take the vote, be done.
So I have a
We
question.
shouldn't, Madam, I have the floor. If we allow opinion, or it is opinion, if I disagree with you, I have an opinion as to why I disagree with you, and then we get to throw that in a minute. When does it end? For whatever commissioner, none of the opinion or discussion should technically be in minutes. That's what's right there. So the easy answer to me is the policy should be that commissioners' opinion, whether they deem it fact or not, should not be part of the minutes on any topic at any time ever. The reason for that is because it gets into a political back and forth where the majority of the board can use the minutes as a political weapon to make the other guy look bad, or
Okay.
make the other guy look inferior, or he did something wrong or illegal.
I have a clarification.
Well, you'd have to ask that of the chair.
I would like you to clarify something for me. In the last 2 weeks, who has asked as a commissioner for changes to the meeting minutes? Who presented changes to staff? Answer the
What?
question.
I did removal of words,
Thank you.
not adding words.
And
Removal of
Again,
opinion.
For point of clarification from the chair, calling words that were put in from recorded meeting minutes from staff, commissioner opinion, is simply your opinion. And we need to leave this to staff to create a proper record for the public and not keep asking staff to change things. We're in this conversation right now because staff was asked to change things by you the last 2 weeks. That's why we're in this conversation.
Staff was out to remove information that was either opinion
In your
or
opinion.
not true.
In your opinion. So same thing from my side. You felt staff put in opinion words that were spoken in meetings. It's my opinion, you're shifting what's happening with staff's work.
Madam Chair, if I may for
I
discussion.
digress with this board. I will end discussion.
Madam Chair, I would first like to thank staff for all the hard work that they do creating the minutes. The minutes are far better than they have ever been in the past. We have made changes to the minutes and how the minutes are done as we have transitioned from workshops that used to be not recorded to now everything is recorded. We have also this discussion that everybody is now have 20 minutes of. You can go online to the 12th and look on how this occurred at 2 hours and 43 minutes into the recording if you would like further background information. There is a motion on the table. There is a second. I would call the question so that we can take a vote and move on. I really am looking forward to public comment today.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Of the, yeah,
Yes. Of the motion and the second, all those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Those abstained, those opposed?
Opposing for reasons that they violate Robert's Rules of Order.
So motion and a second, all those, yeah. We both agree. I'm sorry, I'm off track now.
We have the
The
original.
motion stands.
That was for the amendment for
Yes.
staff. Now there's a
There was
motion.
no amendment, sir.
That was what was on the table.
No, the motion that I made was on the table. There was no amendment.
Madam Chair, there was a motion
Yes.
to approve the minutes. I made a motion to amend the minutes. You seconded it. That is what we voted on.
Yes.
We now need to take a vote on the actual minute adoption.
So I would entertain a motion.
It's
for the-
already been made.
Okay.
We just need any further discussion and then we can vote on the minutes.
All right. One more time. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Or all those opposed,
Nay, for the reasons that they violate Robert's Rules of Order.
motion passes. And good luck capturing all of that. Okay, we're to that portion of our meeting for public comment. If those in the room would like to make comment, please come forward to the table and state your name and where you're from. And the same for Zoom. If you raise your hand and we call on you, we'd like to hear where you're from. Thank you. So I think I'll start on Zoom this morning. I see we have Jean.
Hey, good morning, everybody. And I usually prepare my questions ahead, my comments ahead, so this has nothing to do with the last 30 minutes. I did want to offer a thanks. I've been following you all for about 6 to 8 months now, and the agendas are on point. The meeting minutes are on point. Everything is great, and I can tell that there has been a change in the consistency even over the last 6 to 8 months. And that there's so many moving parts, even with the, the lights, camera, action of the whole Zoom thing, that would not happen without the staff. So all of that stuff is available to me from my home now because of the hard work of the folks at the staff. So I'm very grateful for that. And I appreciate their hard work. The question that I had, excuse me, for the commissioners today is the mention of the comprehensive plan. Is there a scheduled workshop on the agenda or on the calendar for the commissioners regarding the comprehensive plan? Thank you so much.
Thank you. And anyone in the room today like to come forward for a public comment? We have a couple of guests. No. Back online. Roger Nichols.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My apologies for not getting to my button very quickly. I'm a little confused as I'm working part-time, helping out with the reporter for the Sentinel, and I lack a lot of background on this, so my apologies for this, and I'm going to try to make really good reporting. I'm a little confused about whether, and this seems to be a diffuse, I hate to start the conversation again, but whether reporting what was actually said counts as reporting of fact, or if that is an opinion, and how does that get sorted out? Because it doesn't seem like it's very clear to anybody. Thank you and I apologize.
Thank you. And do you have anything else, Roger? You have a couple of minutes left there. It's good to see you again. It's been a lot of years.
Thank you very much. I've been covering the city council for a lot of years because I'm still working for Y102 and our licenses are dual to both areas. I'd hoped to be able to cover you guys as well, but it just wasn't possible. Now I'm semi-retired and got a little bit of time. So both the Columbia Gorge News and newspaper have hired me to cover it. I'm going to be missing a few sessions due to some operations I have to have in the next few weeks, but I'll try to be considerate, and I hope that each of you will feel comfortable reaching out to me if you have any concerns about anything I write ever. I'm much too experienced to be coy about what I write or precious. I want to get it straight. Thank you very much, and fascinating work you guys do. I don't know how anybody can live up to all of that. Thanks.
Thank you. 1678. I think you're muted. We can't hear you yet. I want to try again. 1678, if you want to work on that, we'll move to the next person that would like to speak and we'll come back to you.
Hi, can I speak, please? I don't have a hand icon, unfortunately, showing up on my Zoom.
Hi, Gabby.
Hi, thanks. Congratulations on your Zoom town hall meeting. I'm glad that was successful and I hope that continues. It was comforting hearing so many questions about childcare submitted and them having to do a condensed question. Your $60 million yearly budget and the startup money of $1.5 million to build and operate the cost of a childcare should not be a heavy lift if the ideas hold that you put your money where your values are. And then the fact that you've identified 40 kids that are needing childcare in the county, there should be value behind that. And I'd like you to roll the dice and put childcare on a ballot and let's see where it lands. You can spend your time lobbying state representatives for funding and subsidies. The state coffers are bulging and you can bring that bacon home. Complaints about regulations concerning childcare is just noise. It's always been noise. It is a discussion killer that goes nowhere. You don't complain about the regulations that were needed to build the building that you sit in that cost $20 million. And I just feel like, you muddy the waters when you go to that topic space, because what it doesn't allow for you to do is actually solve the problem that has been pressing for over 50 years and the lack of childcare. And I also want to say that the youth center, there's a disconnect as whether or not they've received that 20,000 budgetary dollars that you say that you're giving the youth center. I just want to understand when that is actually showing up on their books. And then finally, the jail engaged in acts of moral depravity concerning the health and well-being of that female inmate. And I know that that is a litigation situation, so you won't comment on that. But that just, for us as a county, that is a vile storyline that you're having to read in the paper. And humans should do better in their job capacity so that incidents like that are not happening. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing your commentary on childcare. And I appreciate those that are working behind the scenes to do that. And I appreciate the public coming to stand by that initiative of getting childcare in the county and what that could look like. Thank you for your time, and congratulations, Commissioner Zoller, on your chairwoman position. You are grace personified in your seat there, and we appreciate your levity and your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby. We always appreciate you. Up next, is there anyone that's unmuted that would like to speak? You can raise your hand. We can call on you. Anyone in the audience? Okay, great. We're back to choose 662.
Hello, commissioners. This is Tracy from Lyle. And I first want to thank you for the successful commissioner town hall meeting. I really appreciated the format, and I thought Lou did a great job. And I'm hoping that the next one will be advertised. I think it was April 23rd, but if you could confirm that and a time, then hopefully we can get from the community council some help in facilitating a Zoom for people that don't have it. So that was one question I had. The second question I had is I received in a public record request the decommissioning the redistricting plan from 2021 that the district was they ended up just keeping things the same. But David Sauter had said something in that meeting, and I'm sorry I don't have the date. I believe it was March or April of 2021. No, it'd be 2022. Sorry, but anyway, Commissioner Sauter had said that he suggested dividing up Lyle to East and West Lyle for to have the right population of voters in each district. And I'm wondering if that was ever done. That would actually make it more understanding of why I'm having these issues with my addresses than one in Murdoch, because that would make Murdoch part of District 1, which then they have a Lyle address, a Lyle zip code, a Dallasport PO box, and now a Goldendale district. That would make it more complicated. And I want to get into this really quickly. Commissioners, I asked you when you did the burn ban, I asked for how to get records from CACIFA. This is back in 2021, I believe. And I was not given that information. Commissioner Anderson, you knew the information could be gotten from Bingen City Hall, and you neglected to give me that information. Since then, I've got lots of documents from the City Hall on this hazard mitigation plan, on how this disaster stuff all came to about, and I will be bringing this to the commissioner's attention. So if you want to have a private meeting with me, I would suggest that. But if not, I will bring it to public comments in the next few weeks. So I know my time is probably up. Just another thank you for the town hall meeting. It's very good to get in front of you guys and be able to speak with you on a back and forth level. And I hope that you have another one. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. So Rita. Oops.
Morning, commissioners. Thank you for taking my comment. I am calling in this morning to voice my ongoing concerns about operations at your county jail. Over the last 2 years, there seems to be an increasing trend of human rights violation and just blatant disregard for people's right to have medical care. This is becoming an increasingly public issue because we as members of the public are seeing our county represented on state and national media sites in this incredibly horrific way. And I'm deeply concerned that you continue to refuse to comment on this, citing the fact that the jail is under the sheriff's jurisdiction. It is your responsibility as commissioners to manage the budget. The sheriff's office is the largest recipient of our taxpayer dollars and you manage that budget. You sign his paychecks. You sign Culp's paychecks, and you're saying that you're not responsible. I just don't understand why you're refusing to step up and use our taxpayer dollars in ways that aren't going to lead to super complicated lawsuits that then take away resources from the services that we desperately need in this county. I don't understand why you're refusing to comment and tell us what you're doing. I understand when you say there's active litigation and you can't share the details 100%, but you can tell us, and we have the right to know how you're managing this situation, what you're going to do about it, and where the money is going and where you intend for it to go. How are you protecting our taxpayer dollars? How are you protecting citizens'
Alex's wife.
human rights? We have a right to know that. You, as the Board of Commissioners, are the only people that can stop this. You're the ones
Alex,
we're coming
show.
to saying, please take
She-
over the jail. If that's the case and you don't have any ability to work with the sheriff and solve these problems, then you step up and take leadership. You're our leaders. You can put things in place to address this situation and make sure that people are cared for and given the chance to come back and return to our community as productive citizens who are able to get the care they need. And I ask that you please do that, and please let us know how you're going to. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Pat Arnold. Good morning. There-
Good morning. Did you just call on me, Commissioner Fuller?
Yes, I did, Pat. Good to see you.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to make a comment about the Planning Commission proceedings on the Critical Areas Act. I said something last week and I want to say something more today. The purpose of the Critical Areas Act, basically, I'm looking at the purpose statement of the current Critical Areas Area Act, and it says a sprawl and unwise development in areas susceptible to natural hazards may lead to inefficient use of limited public resources, jeopardize environmental resource functions and values, subject persons and property to unsafe conditions, and affect the perceived quality of life. So there's a critical areas ordinance to address those issues, to make sure that critical areas management is done in a way that does not adversely affect county budgets and also the resource functions of the critical areas. And I would suggest that if the Planning Commission is taking the purpose seriously of the critical areas, then their discussion would be on a given item or a given section of the ordinance. The discussion would be about whether the part in question is performing the function as outlined in the purpose, whereas the discussion that I've been listening to in the Planning Commission are pretty much entirely about the impact, the financial impact on somebody who wants to develop a critical area. And those are two different things, you know. The critical areas ordinance is really clear, and so is state law, that private property rights can be affected by public interests and public rights and protection. And so it's the Planning Commission and the county's job to find some kind of balance here. And the discussions are very one-sided. They are entirely about how is this going to affect somebody's pocketbook. They are not at all about how is this going to protect or you know, put into practice the purpose of the ordinance. So I just wanted to make that clear. And they're having another workshop next month, and I suppose these workshops are going to be going on. And I just make a plug that, you know, these ordinances are not enacted in some way to cost people money. They're enacted to protect things that need to be protected. And I hope that the Planning Commission discussions can reflect that actual purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. I see no one new in the room. So is there anyone else online? iPhone.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Leslie Naramore with Washington Gorge Action Programs. And I just wanted to comment once again on the situation that is ongoing in our county jail. I find it very troubling that both of the worst cases that we're hearing about involve Native people. That is a really bad look for our county. And considering things that Culp has said very publicly on Twitter and later stood by, he said on Twitter in regards to a Black man who was accused of committing a crime that they should get a noose. He is clearly a racist. I find it very troubling that he is being left in charge of our jail, considering that people of color are actively being harmed and are disproportionately the ones who are in jail. I find that this is a human rights issue, and I think that you all know that you are the only ones who can do this. You can take care of this. You say that you can't interfere with another elected official. You can absolutely withhold funds. This is an issue that we cannot have ongoing. You have to take care of this. This is absolutely embarrassing for our county. It's being seen on a national level. And I just hope that you can please find it in your hearts to take this issue on and take care of the people, the most vulnerable citizens in our county who really need your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Who's up there? 7211.
Greg Wagner with Cease. I'd like to say that this discussion on the minutes is long overdue. And I believe that the three commissioners need to train themselves that when they're in the open forum and discussing items, to not just give their opinion. That would solve a lot of these problems. Keep your personal opinions to yourself. And editing the minutes behind closed doors just makes the citizens much more suspicious of the leaders that we have, you three commissioners. So it's time for more professional and ethical behavior on your part, and a lot of these problems would be solved as far as the minutes. Just keep your opinions to yourself, stick to the facts, and don't digress. Now, another issue is Klickitat County Title 19 is the zonings, and nowhere in any of the zones is the short-term rental permitted outright. Typically what happens when you want to use your land for something it's not zoned for, you must go through and apply for a change of use. That use has to be reviewed by the Board of Adjustments, 5 citizens. And if that use is not determined to be detrimental to the adjoining properties, a conditional use is issued. This is the process that all the citizens must follow. Even the current sitting commissioner who has an unpermitted short-term rental and refuses to comply with the county codes. He must abide by the county codes. This just is another black eye on the county when the so-called leader refuses to follow the enshrined rules, the trusted process that all the other citizens must follow. The past planning director, Mochi Lindblad, in the year 2023 told that commissioner that 3 times that he must have a conditional use permit for his short-term rental and refuses to take the proper steps that every other citizen must do and get a conditional use permit. It's time for that commissioner, and we all know who he is, to step up and do the right thing and get a conditional use permit, and then all these problems would be put behind him and we could resolve these issues. But he fails to do what's right in violation of his oath, in violation of several state laws. It's okay for him not to have to follow the rules while all the other citizens must follow rules. He also has an unpermitted wedding venue on his property that doesn't have a conditional use permit. There's another one, charges $10,000 for a wedding, makes quite a bit of money there too. It's time for him to use some of that money and go through the process and get a conditional use permit. Because these are not permitted outright. Short-term rentals are not permitted outright in any of the zones in our county. He needs to follow the rules. There are 2 code complaints filed against that very same commissioner for building code violation at his short-term rental.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Okay, Sherry.
Okay, good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
I'd like to finish what Greg was muted on. These are building code can you hear me?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, these are building code violations. And because Commissioner Anderson, and I will call out a commissioner individually, if they are individually, their behavior is their behavior, because I don't think either, all three of you want to be guilty of something that you're not doing. So if you're acting individually, it is absolutely appropriate to call out individuals, and you don't get to hide behind a cloak of a board. And so anyway, it is a building code violation that Commissioner Anderson is using his power against the ethics of his oath, which
Sherry, we need to be sure,
Yes.
but we need to be sure to keep comments to the board as a whole, not to individuals.
and that would be in violation of my free speech. You've given me 3 special minutes to say my public comment. This is an individual behavior. And also, while we're on individual behaviors, let's talk about under canvas again. We'll go back to as a board. You have the authority. So either Commissioner Christopher is wrong when he said he made a motion to withdraw the litigation from under canvas, and Commissioner Zoller and Anderson say you can't do anything about it, that it's in litigation. And I say, yes, you can. The Board of Commissioners back then withdrew the case from the Houston BZ zoning, and people are worried about our tax money. You want tax money for daycare, you want tax money for improvements and infrastructure. Well, why don't you ask your county commissioners why they continue to be in a legal lawsuit, spending tens, probably hundreds of $1,000s against the citizens? This is against the people who reside here, who don't want to die because a special favor of a cup has been granted by our county for a small village, and we can't evacuate. Look into this, people. This is going to be death. Hundreds of transient tourists on that road. Drive Oak Ridge. Go there. This will be death. It should never have been allowed. And now we're in a legal battle, and your everybody's taxpayers' money is being wasted on this. And people should be upset about it. And by the way, the certificate of participation for that building is going to go to 26 million. And also now you're in a battle spending our money against Snowden. It's like you guys say, oh, we make rules unless we have special friends, and then we're going to let them break the rules. And then if the people in the area get upset, come fight us in the back alley, take us to court. And you guys have a blank check because you have our money to be in court all day, every day, year after year with us. So the people run out of money. Why do you even have zoning? Withdraw from under canvas litigation and tell me who's true. Can you or can you not, as a board, make this decision?
you,
I
Sherry.
want the truth.
Thank you, Sherry. And there was Beatrice, I think you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you very much. I didn't have a little hand. I wish, oh, excuse me, I must be, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we've got our technology down. I want to address the humanitarian crisis at the jail. I want to urge that you protect any prisoners in the jail by getting them out of there immediately. Shut that jail down. It's a living hell, especially for people of color. I'm only saying this from the evidence of the 2 people. The one that died and this poor woman in the hospital now are both Native. So it looks it looks obvious, but all I know is that who's ever in that jail now needs to be protected immediately. I urge you to use your power over the budget to shut down that jail and remove those prisoners. Contract with a competent, professionally run facility that has health care, that does not neglect the prisoners, that does not blame the prisoners, that any neglect comes because they didn't cooperate. So it must be their fault. That's what I've read in the paper. It's a humanitarian crisis. It shouldn't be RCW this or we can't do that. You have the budget. you can instantly convert that budget to rescuing existing prisoners, put them in a safe place, and shut that jail down. Turn it into some facility that will help people who are struggling with health problems or mental health problems. There's better ways to do this, and those people in any unfortunate prisoners in there now need to be rescued immediately. And that's what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beatrice. No one in the room. Is there anyone else online this morning? I'll ask one more time and then we'll go forward. We're running a little late for our schedule. No one else this morning. Okay, so we'll pull back now to Commissioner's rebuttal if you'd like to comment. Mr. Christopher, would you like to start?
Okay. I'll hit on some of these. To Jean, is there a scheduled workshop on the comp plan? Unfortunately, not to my knowledge. Mr. Nichols asked the question of what is the difference between fact and opinion? You might have to Google that. To me, everything that is undeniable by all of us, the sky is blue, is fact. Everything debatable is opinion. And that is one of the reasons why I tried to put forward board rules. This last year is that I've seen the board digressing into too much opinion, accusation, and slanderous remarks and debate. Gabby, childcare. I am also very curious if this board is willing to stand up and put childcare on the ballot. I look forward to seeing if the board is willing to do that. The youth center, when do they get their money? They submit their bills to us when they have them. We did not have one in this week's bill folder, but we did have one in last week's bill folder for staff, and I think it was like $1,200 or something for what was submitted. Even came with a little update that they did a little cleanup and how many kids were on the cleanup and whatnot. But as they have bills, they submit them and then they're reimbursed. Rita, jail operations. A lot I can't get into there. I will correct you that we do not sign the paychecks. We do control the overall budget on how much. Essentially, we control how many dollars they get for staff and how many dollars they get for surgical gloves and uniforms and meals and everything that's not staff. So you get two different budget numbers. One is for staff, one is for everything other. What we don't have control of is where they spend that money, which staff members receive the money, or which items they buy. Those are all within that elected officials' management. So while we do have the ability to cut staff via removing a name from an org chart and removing a position, we don't have the authority to say so-and-so no longer works for the county. That's up to the elected official. We don't get to say, you can't buy this anymore, because they can transfer money from fuel to buy that. So there is, while we do have control, we could just, I don't know, cut $1 million from the sheriff's budget. We have no idea what the end result of that would be, or what they wouldn't buy, or who they wouldn't have employed to make up that $1 million. So I guess, I hope that clarifies a little bit. We do have a little bit of budget authority, but it doesn't get into what they spend those dollars on. Some of those I won't get into. Mr. Wagner, I agree with you. The position of the county, prosecutor, past commissioners, myself, past planning department has always been that short-term rentals are not permitted outright. Sherry, I agree with your statement that individual commissioners should be called out individually, because I personally do not want to be blamed by the actions of others. and that board members shouldn't be able to hide behind the board of the whole, because that's kind of been my point for years now. I kind of don't want to be lumped in with at least this current board, so I would appreciate it I don't mind standing out on the side and not being lumped in. I actually appreciate it. To Beatrice, that is one of the options. Shut the jail down. That is one of the options the county does have. The county can take over the jail. It can't close the jail down and sublet out to some other county, and we have to haul all our prisoners up to their jail. Those are options that the county has. We have not got into discussing any of those options that I know of, at least not in open session. And I wouldn't be open to discussing any of those options until I have, again, facts. This goes back to Roger Nichols and not opinion, because currently on both of the cases that have happened in the jail, I do not have any facts. I have been presented some information by one side, but I would definitely not say I know what's going on either case. Because again, those are between the sheriff, the prosecutor, and the insurance company, and we are not in those meetings and or briefed on those meetings. So I need to wait and see what happens before I make a decision. And see what the facts of the evidence that comes out of those cases are before I make a decision. But I do appreciate your comment, and I can honestly say that I worry about things, and I would say that I do believe that we need to make sure that we're taking care of the health, safety, and welfare of the prisoners. And I currently can see no evidence that the sheriff is not doing that. So we'll see where this goes from here. But yeah, we'll just leave it at that. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Madam Chair. Jean, thank you so much for pointing out that the minutes are on point, and thank you to staff for continuing to do a bang-up job on that. As to the comprehensive plan, please stay around. We have our planning director giving us an update very shortly, so hopefully we can move there. Gabrielle, thank you so much for pointing out Commissioner Zoller and her grace personified. I think she has done an excellent job chairing these meetings and trying to keep the peace. As for the childcare, thank you for always keeping it in front of us. We never forget childcare and the importance that childcare has. A lot of that comes down to the county's requirements of what we were required to do. Where we have issues is the available funds after those things that we are required to do. I think Commissioner Christopher did a great job, I believe last week or the week before, explaining the childcare issues with those 40 people and the cost to the county budget that would incur every year, that we don't have those kind of dollars available for when we look at our county budget and where we're at moving forward. That's just the numbers on it. Putting childcare on the ballot, I would gladly love to see someone come forward with a ballot initiative that could run about potentially creating or managing a county program. But I think that needs to probably start with the childcare committee as one of the levers that they could pull. Tracy, this town hall was very successful. Thank you so much for attending, and thank you for everyone who has watched it online and everybody who participated in it. I agree, it was very successful. As to the redistricting plan in 2021, all those meetings are recorded, and I could not give you information from the Bingen City Hall or anything else. Those are not our records. So you are welcome to contact me, because I don't exactly know what you were saying, Tracy, with regards to that. Rita and Leslie, I hope you know how seriously we are taking the jail and the sheriff's department. And we are doing everything we can behind the scenes. There's a lot of things that, of course, we're not allowed to talk about because of potential litigation or pending litigation. I can tell you, though, on a grander scheme, I was just meeting with the Healthcare Authority in Olympia, working on trying to get healthcare medical records for the jail and hopefully starting a pilot project to get more funds flowing into the jail with regards to medical services. It was a very positive meeting. Nothing at the state moves very quickly, but that is something that we are doing behind the scenes that we're still working on. I will agree with Commissioner Christopher that we have a few levers that we can pull. I will agree with the levers that he mentioned. The board could take over the jail. That in essence is a nuclear option. The jail is still there. It still could have the same issues. We have not spoken as a board about that, and we are not there yet. I also agree that we need all the facts in front of us before we make any large decisions with regards to the jail. And I hope to do that not in a vacuum, but with the sheriff and working together as one large team, including the prosecutor, if anything is to be done in the future. Pat, thank you for your comments on the Planning Commission. Please stay tuned. The planning director will be speaking to us right thereafter. And this one, I'm sorry, there was a lot of notes taken. Leslie, we cannot withhold funds according to state statute as punishment. That is against the law. We cannot do that to an individual. If we did withhold funds, it would not impact the sheriff. It would impact services and make a potentially bad situation worse. While that seems like a lever that we could pull, we are actually not allowed to pull that lever. Mr. Wagner, you talk about the county commissioner sticking to the facts. We get asked a multitude of questions on any given public comment, and the public wants to hear our responses. Sometimes we misspeak because we don't have the time to go back through all the video and the audio and be very clear about the numbers. We try to be approximate. We try to give people answers, but we're writing that fine line on trying to communicate and be a part of the conversation. But if all you want is facts and figures, send me an email, and then we can get back to you in that format. What we're talking about here is we're trying to show that we are empathetic, we are listening, and we do take the things that the public says very seriously. And I hope everyone feels that way and understands that we do listen and we do definitely care, all three of us. We may not always agree. We try to respect one another, but we are trying to work for the betterment of all the citizens of Klickitat County.
I will second that. We might not always agree on different issues. And we might have what the public sees as vigorous debate, but that vigorous debate is quite common in other counties. But when it comes down to listening to the people, do I actually believe that this board cares about what you say? And the answer is yes, all three of us do.
Thank you, Mr. Christopher. And I have to echo most of everything that my seatmates said today, but keep it as simple as I can because we are running late for the other people in the room for their scheduled time with us. And I do thank Eugene for staff. They work very hard for us. They have a lot harder job than we do, I believe. And keeping us straight, keeping it together, and keeping the information to the public is crucial. So I do appreciate how hard they work. For everyone that's questioning opinion versus fact, it is very frustrating. And I feel like I spend a majority of my time in a game called How Things Work. And so I have to back up, come back, visit, talk about how things really work. And then it's a frustration when it comes back around again. And here we go again with the misconceptions, but we'll keep working on it. Gabby, thank you again. Stick with that daycare. I have to say I am encouraged because of how things work. I've only been able to dip into that a little bit, and I'd like to be fully involved with childcare. I hope to get there. I do see movement at the state level, and I do see movement in that bigger voice that has been created through our regional efforts. So I'm encouraged there. And then for everyone that commented on the jail today, you know, it is touching people's hearts. And you have to know too, although we sit in these chairs and you see this side of us, we are human and we have our human side that this affects. And it isn't a lost subject on us, but there is process we have to work through. But I think the commissioners have came to a Y in the road with this situation, and we're going to have to start having some very quick, very hard conversations right away. So that's where I am with that. And I'd like to close with public comment today and move on with department updates from our planning director, Scott Edelman. Thank you, Scott.
And I would like to thank all the public for their comments.
I would thank the public too. Madam Chair, do you want payroll real quick while you're handing things out?
Sure.
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we approve the accounts payable warrants in the amount of $289,527.27 for the payroll benefit warrants in the amount of $1,166,469.95 for the date ending March 25th, 2024.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Payroll warrant and certificates are approved. Oh, go ahead. Okay. Do I hear a motion?
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda with 13 items.
I would second the motion.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda passes. Mr. Edelman.
Good morning, commissioners. It's glad to see it's a beautiful day out there. Because for me, it's more than one because Emily and the boys are with me today, and I hope they get to meet you this afternoon. Not in the room quite yet, but we're going to be looking at some properties later, late afternoon, evening, and we're going to bring them by the office. So hopefully they'll get a chance to meet you. I've changed a bit what I was going to say based on the amount of time. I'd like to try to keep it as brief as I can. I'll jump down to a couple items, and I'll leave the rest for you just to review because a lot of them you've seen before. They're just continued things to monitor. Planning Commission, I want to make a comment of how much I value volunteers that come in all forms. Planning Commission is one of them. I think they're doing an outstanding job for my time with them. Pat Arnold made some comments about how they're looking at the critical areas ordinance. Pat Arnold's another volunteer that I really appreciate, that she takes her time to come to the meetings, to talk at yours. And people like that keep us on focus. And I think her comments are well taken and I can see her perspective. It's not quite mine because I do, as I shared last meeting, think the Planning Commission is doing a very good job of taking their role very seriously, both making sure we protect our critical areas, but also making sure that there's not overly burdensome, both on the developers and on staff so that we can do our job. Because you put too much on us, we're not able to focus on the important things, that could actually be a detriment. But I do appreciate her. Another volunteer I appreciate is, I believe her name is pronounced Jean. People are interested in being involved in the comprehensive plan. I know there's a lot of people chomping at the bit to get going. I am too. I would like to ask if you have people who are interested, have them contact me directly. Probably the best way is email at sedelman@klickitatcounty.org. I would like to start a list of people who can be points out in the community who I know are interested. So as we do start this work. Those are the last things from the bottom of the page. I'd like to focus my attention on the beginning because I do have a request for you. And it may be something you can't answer right now. And the real answer might come next week. You heard from the Department of Commerce. They've got, it's called a Community Decarbonization Grant Program. That came last week. There's $167 million available through 3 rounds. The first round was only available to the tribes. The second round is coming up that is available to communities. And I think it's important to note, well, I'll go on. There's a grant category that I think we might be interested in. It's for planning projects that support the siting and permitting of clean energy projects through at least one of the following, and talks about supporting pre-development work, supporting land use studies, conducting or engaging in programmatic environmental impact statements, or improving permit timeliness and certainty with staff, expertise, or databases. The other categories that are in this grant are, and I know this is a concern by some of the public, are definitely developing solar wind facilities. They're developing the projects. The planning ones, to me, are more of a step back and an ability to look as a community, ideally to get a win-win where we're not just looking at trying to promote these facilities, but where the best places are and giving us a tool to do so. The awards will be announced May 16th. The grant application is due next Friday. It's a very tight timeline. We just heard about them last week. We've been talking, researching it. So what I'm looking is to see if you, I don't want to start working on this if there won't be at least some semblance of support from the commission to move forward. So I wanted to give you some initial information. There's no match. There is a maximum grant amount, but it's well above what a planning project is. It's more designed for the construction projects. It's something like $2.7 million, which we wouldn't come close to. The grant period is through the contract execution, which at the earliest they say is June 4th through the following June. So basically a 1-year implementation program. There are options to either extend later on or put a request for extension or to do a contract beyond 1 year, but that is contingent on the legislature authorizing. So there's a bit of a risk. They have to authorize each year whether or not the funding will be available to continue. A proposal that I am suggesting that I'm very open to ideas today or next week, as again, it's not due till next Friday. So I'm not necessarily asking for permission to apply. I'm asking for support if there is to spend the time to put the grant application together. The proposal to look at adopting or drafting, at least depending on the time frame, a solar ordinance, which would address solar specifically. Is my understanding is the current standards we have in place are not as robust or sufficient to cover maybe the community interests as is the wind ordinance that we have. The ordinance is related to wind. And then in addition to that would be starting our comprehensive plan. I don't know if we'd be able to justify the full plan or a good part of the plan that could be tied to solar, which is a lot of the plan, because as you know, it's general statements and goals about the values of the community, which a lot of them can ultimately tie in. So that'd be the proposal, to focus on those two items, the solar ordinance and starting the work on the comprehensive plan. I don't know the amount. We'll need to look, like talk to our consultants, because part of this would be staff, me and others from our department would take on a lot of this, and I would see hoping to get reimbursed and paid for, which would then allow us to offload more of our work to our consultant that we're getting ready to work with on other work that's important to the county. So we're looking at maybe 250,000 to 350,000, might depend on the time frame. I want to refine that a little bit and very open to suggestions on that. So the request from the Board of Commissioners today is to ask if you support a draft application that I would bring back more information, maybe not the complete application, see how far I can get, but more information with substantially done application next week. And then other general guidance I'd be looking for this week or next. Do we want to try to make it a multi-year project, knowing how long comprehensive plans take? If we're trying to take on more of the plan rather than just a focused amount of it, I think maybe we would want to propose a 2-year plan instead of a 1 year. Is the proposed focus accurate? Those two items, the solar ordinance and comprehensive plan update? And does the dollar amount seem reasonable? Plus any other questions you might have.
Ken, would you like to start?
Yeah, I cautiously optimistic. The two items seem fine to me, but I don't know whether I can't say I fully support until I actually read the language in the agreement. But as long as it goes the direction I think it's proposed to go, I don't think the general public will have too much concerns. I would leave it up to you on the 1 year, 2 year. I think you're right on the 2 year. So I guess I would say I have no issues at this time, and probably wouldn't until I was able to read the full document if awarded the grant, the terms and conditions of the contract.
Great job. Great job bringing something forward that'll help pay for some of your salary going forward so that we can save the county budget. Great job for like thinking outside the box. I think a solar ordinance is a great idea, and having you and the consultants be able to work on that without hitting the county budget would be a benefit to all the community members. Tying in the comprehensive plan, I think, is excellent, so that the solar ordinance can fall into that in getting as much of that as we can. I am happy, moving forward, trying to get to, as project deliverables for year 1 would be a draft of both. And then make it an optional, so that if so commerce if they get reauthorized, they can just have a grant agreement or a grant amendment to get the other $100,000 to get from the draft to the final. I think that would be a great idea if we can do that, because then it saves, again, the county another $100,000 getting to the end without having to reapply. If that's something they'd be amenable to, I am in full support of moving forward.
Thank you.
I'm thrilled. It's positive movement. We're going forward. Thank you so much, Scott. And, you know, just coordinating the grant that it helps us pay for things for the county. That's awesome. I'm thankful to Public Works that they help set up that contractor so you can hit the ground running. And you have qualified help so your staff can say, we can do this. We're not overburdened and we can start moving forward. So I think it's a great first step, and it looks like it's going to move us towards the comprehensive plan and towards solar and a lot of things we needed to get done. So thank you very much in your 4th week.
Okay, well, thank you. And I'll appreciate the good job, depending on what happens on the 15th, and maybe a great job when we finish the whole thing. So that's my goal.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
That's all that I have for you, unless you want to get into any other items on this.
We're good today. I'm good.
Thanks. Thank you.
Looking forward to meet your family. So we'll bypass commissioner reports and comments, and Public Works update, Director Jeff Hunter. And Seth is with him. Our county engineer. I'll give you your title today.
Thank you. Hey,
Yeah.
hey now.
Thank you.
Okay, we will try to get you somewhat back on schedule. We'll see. We have a few items at the end, and we will end on a positive note. I can promise you that.
Thank you.
You've approved all the consent agenda items. There is one thing I've worked with Elisa on. While the board will sign the grant agreement, everything is done electronically now. So ultimately, the chair signs it electronically. And we have no payment approvals. Go ahead.
Let's see, the construction program, we have the crushing contract is still working in Matson. They're gonna be finishing up there hopefully soon and moving on to the Fisher Hill Quarry. Annual striping contract was on the consent agenda this morning for awarding the contract and the bonds. On road design, we're working with Crab to go through the award process for the Sundale Old 8 project, so there'll be more news on that in the future. Liquid asphalt, concurrence to award was on the consent agenda as well this morning. Data collection, ball banking, no change there. We're still waiting for the contractor to complete all their data analysis and get us a report. Bridge repair bundle, still working with WashDOT's award program to get the consultant on board to design those projects, and other preliminary work continues.
Okay, east side maintenance is we're grading and doing road culvert extensions and road culvert replacement in anticipation of the paver that comes in May, federally funded paver. West side, we're doing grading, brooming of the sand and hauling gravel. On the facility side, jail roof project is complete. Finally done with it. Again, it's been done for a long time. It was just aesthetics and little tweaks that needed to be done. The roof has been done. Superior Court remodel. We have 2 small works contracts that bid. We are having to put a third one out to bid for an additional carpenter because our carpenter is still laid up from his accident. So we're going to bid. So there'll be one more contract for Tom for labor, basically. I just don't have, we're pulling somebody off the road crew to help, but we just don't have anybody else. We need somebody that actually does that. The guy we do have is hurt. Events, Fire on the Mountain went well. Easter egg hunt is this weekend. Fuel Island, we're continuing to work on design. We're going to circle back to the auditors at the end because I said we have good news. HVAC contracts, Pioneer Center contract is to begin replacement of those units May 2nd through the 22nd. In courthouse, HVAC from last year is supposed to be, we're trying to get them to come in April when the courtroom is shut down because it's the Superior Court room, HVAC system. Dispatch duct cleaning is scheduled for this Thursday. And Sadis Pass camera repair project was complete. Was replaced on Monday. Now we have to work with, make sure dispatch can see it. They're gonna test it on Wednesday, but it has not shut off. What it's doing is it was firing up, it'd stay up for a while and shut down. It hasn't done that. So we're thinking that it's been taken care of. You gotta remember that. Okay, real quick, we can, I know you're stretched for time. I could give you the Trout Lake stuff. We looked at it a couple different ways. I just want to kind of give you, we also found the ordinances and how we got the property. I'll be working with the PA to discuss that because it was deeded to the county as a park. And where I worked in prior jurisdictions, they once tried to convert it out. The heirs came after the jurisdiction. So I don't know where we stand in this. It just depends. It was adopted by resolution to be used as the park, as a park in 1962. So there's that we want to consider, but here's the rates. We looked at three different, we went up again. Our first proposal is what we proposed. The second proposals, we increased it more. And then the final, which is in the orange, is what it gets to get to the park to be self-sufficient. Now, there is a little bit to, because part of it, the raising would be raising the shower rates, but those are the old style, like the laundromat plug in play. So you'd have to change those out. It's about $600 to do that. To change all 6 of them if we wanted to increase the number of quarters that were used for the 5-minute shower. But again, I don't necessarily need an answer today. Gives the board time to chew on it. Wanted to get it out there for you.
Thank you.
Some good news. We met with OTR, which Oregon Trail Rally. I'll let the board catch up. Sorry.
Good. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, we met with Oregon Trail Rally yesterday. They're coming back again. They like being here. They're going to use Dallas Mountain Road, Oak Flat, and Mary Hills Loop Road. They're also going to have a car show in Goldendale. They're going to stay. They're going to be housed at the school, so it's a big part of Goldendale. They want to have a big part of Goldendale. We're actually talking to them about having. They want to have an appreciation dinner, and they used to have it at the Legion. They don't have it at the Legion just can't do it. We said, if you want to be self-sufficient, there is, and they're fine with paying fees. We do have the fairgrounds that they could rent. So they're going to look at that too. Okay, that brings me to, speaking of events, brings me to Home and Garden. We are meeting with Home and Garden tomorrow. They are requesting a fee waiver of, you'll see it at the bottom. Thank you. They originally requested 7,000, but we talked them down to 2. They don't, that's if they have the whole week. We suggested that they don't take the whole week at the fairgrounds. They only take 5 days. But this is it. And when we set up our budget, this was one of our pain. It has always been a pain.
You just say this has always been a paying event up until this time?
Yes, they've always paid our fees, even though they didn't charge admission to the event.
Well, and I believe they are charging admission of like $8.
They are. You are correct, Commissioner Christopher. They are charging and also asking. But there is, I don't know what they took for hotel and motel tax, or what they asked for. That might be part of their thing. But again, we could bring it formally, but we like to tell them where they stand. Please keep in mind, the public works thing, we'll look in the budget, but we've always assumed that they would pay, because that's road that does that. So the $3,100, we would not do that if that was not for that event. The compacting of the arena, we would not do that.
And do they have more days this year than before?
Yeah, they want it longer,
Mhm.
and I think they may only be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm not 100%.
For their real event?
Yeah, for their real event. I
But
don't
then are
think
they asking for additional days?
they were asking for a whole week.
Okay.
We told them, we give them a day on both ends
Mhm.
for cleanup. That's part of your fee.
Okay.
Those are free,
Okay.
to move in and move out, but they wanted the whole week, and then that raised it up to 7,000. We talked them back to 5 days.
Okay.
Can you explain why it costs $3,000 to compact the arena floor with the labor and equipment? How much time goes into that to come up with that $3,000?
It's quite a bit. The equipment rental is, you're using a grader, a roller, and then the people. So the grader, it's about 4-hour job. The grader is 65. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but that actual rate went up just a little bit from last year, but you're paying essentially 2 people. Not essentially, you are paying 2 people for 4 hours, plus you're paying the equipment, everything else. So when it's all said and done, it's about 4 hours by the time they mob in and mob out and everything else. It's pretty close to a good day.
Yeah.
And then our guys go in, and then they have to do around the posts and everything.
Do you have comment? Discussion? Mr. Christopher?
And you're using road department staff for that, right?
Yeah, I don't have any other choice.
Yeah. I don't know how we could give it to them for free when we're using road department staff. You would then have to pull it from a different budget and pull into the road department. I don't understand how that would work. And they're charging, they paid in the past and they're charging admittance. I'm trying to see where that would be the benefit. But I'm still thinking about it.
Mr. Christopher? Nothing?
I could tell the board, I could tell them that the board is thinking, and give, the board another week or two. They don't necessarily have to know. I mean, we're meeting with them tomorrow, and I could tell them I proposed it, the board is thinking, and we'll give them an answer next week, if that's what the board chooses to do.
Well, and for me, I've made it very plain at the lodging tax meetings that I would really like to see all the events become self-sustaining. And that's a hard thing to say to people after we've funded all these years for years and years, to then say, okay, now we've got to start charging advertising or signs or something, or posters that you let people put up, charge admissions, but help us manage the dollars better and spread the wealth of what we have to give out. So it's a little disconcerting to me for an event that's flourished, that has never charged admission, to now come back and ask us for a pass. That's very hard for me. I would not be in favor of it, and I'll just state it right up front.
To me, they may be different, they may not. This is just me talking. To me, I look at the fairgrounds the same way I look at Trout Lake Park.
Mhm.
And my opinion has always been the same on all of these events, and I look at them all the same as well. They should be self-sufficient. I would be pushing for self-sufficiency everywhere, just like I will for Trout Lake Park, and it may be unfavorable to some. But I've also pushed for fee waivers for the fairgrounds for events that cater to youth. Home Garden Show is not an event that caters to youth. There might be some youth there, but that's not its purpose. So I would not be in favor of approving this request.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did you want to give him more time, Jake, for you to think about
No, it sounds like we're all kind of on the same page.
Okay, we will let them know.
Thank you.
Okay, well, couple quick things. It will be, I don't have them on your list, but I'll make them quick. I just found out we own some concrete panels that we got. I've been approached by a citizen, but he's proposing to use them. They're concrete panels we got, must have been 20, 30 years ago from the dam when they tore the old walkway across. And somehow or another, they ended up with the county. Now, I'm not positive. I gotta confirm it with one more call. So the calls I have made, they said, yes, those are your panels. They're sitting on county property in Dallasport. But before we do anything, I want to check with them. Now, a citizen representing the irrigation district. You remember the flooding up in Glenwood this last year is because of the diversion box up there blew apart. I didn't go up and check. This is what I'm getting. And they would like to use, they said approximately 50 of those to build a new diversion box. There's 278 of them out there right now. They do belong, if they belong to the county. I told them I'd have to check with the board first. Because we're giving them to another, taxing district, it's a little different than if we were giving them to not a taxing district.
Well, Roaring is not a taxing district.
Okay.
They're an irrigation company.
Not a district. Okay, so then
That's where I'm coming from. I
Okay.
need legal opinion of the exact individual.
Yep.
That this is not going to be gift of public funds, but worst case scenario, you put them out to bid and they're the only ones that bid on them. Whatever.
Okay, we can do that too. Doesn't matter. Just look into the board for how they want to approach this.
One other possible option is we could give, because I know the conservation district has been involved in this. We might be able to gift them to the conservation.
Yes,
district.
that's true. If there's other avenues, I just thought personally, if we could help with the flooding, that would be fantastic. Because be honest, we're not using them for anything. We didn't even know they were ours.
How long have we had said items since they took out the dam?
I don't know, honestly. I didn't even know they were ours until the person approached me.
Could you think of anything in your head that the county itself might use these panels on for anything going forward?
Oh, yes, let's not get rid of all.
Well, that's kind of where I'm coming from. You're gonna get rid of
I'm-
something, and then you're gonna come back to me and ask me to buy some later, now that you know they're there.
No, I wouldn't have you buy them. Come on. I do have a place, but I'm not gonna say right
Okay.
now.
So
Okay.
clarification for me, would this help Public Works because we're now containing that back that doesn't flood out somewhere where you're having to do repairs or something?
Well, yeah, definitely. It would help the flooding that, that for
Well,
that community.
Put it back into that channel. Is that the
would
one that
help.
goes under the bridge that's a problem?
Well,
Okay.
because what happened, that blew out and instead of the water coming down Bird Creek and Fraser, it went all down Fraser. And hence we saw a lot more flooding in one area. And then when the water got so bad, it still ended up down Bird Creek, but it wasn't as bad. That's why we had the problems.
So technically, we could possibly do a public-private because it's going to have an impact on county roads
Yes,
if we don't do anything.
yes. So there's other options. I can talk to the PA about.
Okay.
Okay, one more thing. And we're gonna end, tribally said, I promised we'd end on a good note. We've pretty much we've got a few more things. We gotta put the windows in on the auditors, polling, security or ballot counting security. The ADA bathroom is complete and it is open. So there was a good plus that the auditor got for us with the grant money. So, we're taking shots on things, but as a small county, thanks to the auditor getting the money, we were able to complete something that a lot of counties probably haven't done yet. So we'll have secure balloting and a place where people can actually see people in the big fishbowl counting the ballots.
Thank you.
but I
Yeah.
wanted to end on a positive.
Thank you. That is a good positive thing.
No,
Yeah,
that'll be good.
and an ADA bathroom in a ancient facility.
Yeah.
You know,
We,
which
we
is awesome.
have an ADA bathroom in the courthouse in 2024.
We have two now, one on each floor.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Anything for me? Or
Not
us?
me. No,
Okay,
you're not in trouble today.
thank you.
Thank you. Great. Let's see, where are we? So we have Heather Joby with the Auditor's Office for an update for us. Thank you for being patient, everybody. We got behind today.
Yeah, busy morning.
Mhm.
All right, so just to address one of the issues that came up in public comment, we are a code or commission county. The other option is a charter county. Only charter counties have the option of using the referendum and initiative process. We do not have the ability to do that.
Are you talking
Thank you.
about the comment made by a commissioner that the child care board can go to a levy? Is that what you're
Put an initiative on the ballot.
correct?
That
As I
would-
said, that would be the board that would need to put a levy on the ballot, not the child care committee.
Well, we use the term initiative. I'm just saying that's not an option
Another
available.
example of a possible misspeak that happens on a regular basis.
So I'm just,
Thank you.
clarifying that for the record. So we just finished our second of 5 elections and are rolling right into our third. The election was the presidential primary. Not surprisingly, on the Democrat ticket, Joe Biden took 85%. On the Republican ticket, Donald Trump took 81% of the vote. We ended with about a 44% voter turnout. We sent out 381 cure letters to folks. Most of those were due to a failure to pick a party. We received all kinds of commentary and questions during the course of the election about why people had to pick a party when Washington State does not require you to register based on a party. And so to answer that question broadly, this is essentially a ballot version of a caucus. This is an election. In fact, it's actually really 2 elections. It's a Democrat election and a Republican election to help them winnow their candidate to go on to the general election. So the parties submit the oath to the Secretary of State's office, they certify it, and we are simply conducting this election on behalf of the party. And so that's why they require.
So this is not the county's choice
No,
to put the D or the R box on the outside of the ballot. We're just doing
requirement of the parties.
what
It
is
for
required.
the major political parties.
Do the parties
which-
have to pay?
The state pays for this election.
The state pays, the parties
We will,
don't have
we
to
will
pay.
bill the state for this election. Whether the state turns around and bills the parties, that's,
Got it. Thank you.
we will bill the state for the election. And if, I believe it's a 5%, if another party gets 5% in the presidential race, they would be eligible to be on the primary and can be considered a major party. Right now, we only have 2, which is why there wasn't an independent candidate option. In November, people can vote whoever they want to without declaring a party. So our third election is the April 23rd election. Ballots will be mailed by next Friday, probably actually next Wednesday. It's just the Bickleton School District. It's about 250 voters. Candidate filing week is May 6th through 10th. So that's coming up. We do have candidate information packets available in the office if anybody is interested. Now our fun topic from Thursday, the redistricting issue of the legislative district. We are working with the state to figure out what that looks like. And I have a voicemail waiting for me from a contractor who could potentially help us with precincting and any of the other issues coming down the pike with regard to that change in legislative districts. But currently, that legislative change impacts 8 precincts: Centerville, East Klickitat, Glenwood, Lisle, Pine Forest, West Klickitat, Orchard Heights, and Appleton. So we have to make changes in 8 precincts.
When you make the changes, could that impact the neighboring precincts as well, though?
Potentially, because we kind of have 2 options, and it's likely going to be a combination of 2 options, is to move precinct boundaries or split them. I want to say it's either Orchard Heights or Pine Forest. One of them is pushing the limits
Pine Forest.
of the 1,500 statutory limit anyway. So that one, the smartest course of action would be just split it and create new precincts. But and we have until the week before filing week. So I think that's April 29th to get this done.
That's not very long.
And as of yesterday, which was the Secretary of State's deadline for information, there hadn't been a stay granted by the court.
I was gonna say, it's absolutely impossible for you or a consultant or anybody else to get that done by that time. So I'm very curious how this turns out.
Well, we're going to give it a shot.
And I was told by Senator King Saturday evening that the Ninth Circuit declined to take it up.
Well, it's dead in the water then.
Sounds like there's a possibility that they're going to apply directly to the Supreme Court, though. But again, you're not going to see that by yesterday. So
Yeah. Well,
Scott, we're
there we have it. So we'll do what we can.
Thank you.
okay,
Just what you needed.
Yeah.
thank you.
Anything else?
That's how the days go. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. So our Sheriff Bob Songer, Carmen, and come on, Lori, Karen. Thank you, Bob. Here, I'll leave one for Jay. Thanks.
Are you sure?
Good morning. Yeah, we'll go ahead and start out on our update. Number 1, there were a total of 3,143 calls for service from January 1st, 2024 to March 25th, 2024. In addition to the calls for service, deputies served a total of 437 civil papers during the same time period. I don't have a whole lot to report today, but would go to paragraph 2. I attended the Western State Sheriff's Association Conference in Reno, Nevada on the week of March 4th, 2024. We covered a number of subject matters during the training, such as the southern and northern border problems we are facing throughout the United States. We also covered our shared commitment in regards to the mental health and wellness of correctional staff by providing more blogs, videos, and content from professionals across the industry. We also covered drug and human trafficking occurring throughout the United States and known terrorists crossing the southern and northern borders coming into the United States. The Washington State Sheriff's Association was excellent training, and it gave me the opportunity to make contacts with other sheriffs throughout Western states that face the same issues we are dealing with in Washington State. Might add, there was like 300 sheriffs that attended that from the Western states. And of course, one of the main topics was our borders. And every state is a border state, whether we want to buy it or don't buy it. With immigrants illegal immigrants coming across the border, We know that there is terrorist activity is a very good possibility. And it's not a matter if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. So we're going to be meeting with some of the citizens in our communities to prepare for disaster, whether it's a natural disaster or whether it's a terrorist disaster. We do not want to scare people, but people have to have their head on a swivel and be alert what's going on in their communities. So that's forthcoming, and I'll be reporting to the board on what kind of a setup we might have down the road. I will be attending in April the Constitutional Sheriff's Peace Officers Association meeting and be a guest speaker there in regards to what they want to talk about is a posse. The posse program we have, they want policy and procedures and encourage other sheriffs to do a community policing program with the posse. Because a lot of law enforcement, not just us, across the states, western states and elsewhere, are strapped for money, budget, and so forth. So we're looking for help from citizens to work with us in a positive way to make a safer community. So that's one of the things that'll be coming up. So now I'll turn it over to Undersheriff to make comments. Oh, I might add, Jail Deputy Lauren Culp is in his last week of completing Commissioner Officer recertification at the Washington State Law Enforcement Academy. He'll be back to work next week. That's why he's not here today. So, Carmen?
Good morning. So we've had a pretty busy first 3 months. Deputies and reserve deputies have completed approximately 130 hours of training in the first quarter of 2024. I believe with everybody between deputies and reserves, there's 480 hours of training with that combined group. Reserve Deputy Tim Harden completed BoCC, the boat operator for search and rescue in Tacoma. I believe that was 2 weeks ago. Defensive tactics instructors Deputy Chance LaRue and Corrections Corporal Robert Cooper held their first quarter DT trainings this last week, and they actually invited other agencies to participate. We've implemented new procedures for traffic stops, which will provide more accurate data to track all of our stops. This data will be used to increase patrols in known problem traffic areas and provide accurate data for the Traffic Safety Commission. To date, roughly we've had, this doesn't include yesterday, 181 traffic offenses where the deputies have stopped. So this will be able to track when they clear the call, they can, if it's a criminal citation, it has one clearance code, or if they just give a warning or an infraction, those are different clearance codes. That way, if we notice a pattern, we have one driver that's been stopped 12 times and has had 12 warnings, they're probably more likely, they'll have that history and clearly educating that person has not worked. And so maybe it's time for an infraction, things like that.
So with the numbers that you give us every month, is that going to change what it looks like, what you give us pretty significantly?
Yes.
Okay.
I know yesterday, I think it was yesterday, there was like 9 traffic stops. So yeah, those numbers you will see a change. And I included the report from February 21st till yesterday in here. And you can see the number of traffic offenses. Some of these where there's a whole lot right in a row, those are from the deputies running in the traffic safety emphasis. So those are going on frequently, and we're trying to increase our participation in those as well. The safer we can have our roads for all of our community members and visitors, the better. I want to encourage people to obey the traffic safety laws, wearing their seat belts. In Seattle last week, they just had an 18-year-old speed through an intersection and T-boned a van that killed a mom and 3 young kids. So that person was 18 years old and now faces multiple vehicular manslaughter charges and changed their life forever, and the victims' lives too, of course. The office space in the Potts building has been painted. I finally got up there on a Friday, got that done. I'm gonna update the trim. Then we'll move in office furniture, and hopefully, if all goes well, we can have that meeting space or office space usable by mid-April. And this will be a good quiet area for deputies to complete their work as needed. Because as I think we've updated before, we kind of took, the jail had to take over their office space that the deputies use because there's, can't add on to the jail space. So the old dispatch is now jail administration. A quick update on corrections as well. Corrections deputies have completed their first quarter of defensive tactics. And Sergeant Gillum just successfully completed the adult mental health first aid instructor training. That instructor training will allow him to teach courses here, and that way we don't have to pay for instructors for those kind of trainings for our staff. Current inmate population is 32 inmates. I'd also like to note that we've had a subject that's been incarcerated since last week. Because of his mental health status, we're extremely concerned. We knew that he was not going to be able to be sent to a facility for to be stabilized. So we took extreme measures of watching him, and we provided 24/7 eyes on him up until last night when he was cleared by a DCR. So it's been pretty intense. We brought in posse members, corrections deputies, and patrol to watch over him for that time.
What's DCR?
Designated crisis responder.
Okay, thank you.
So the jail's staying busy as usual. This past weekend, they only had one arrest. The weekend before that, though, there was 11 arrests that come through over the weekend. So they're staying quite busy. The mental health, of course, we know that's not going away, and it's only getting exacerbated. The delays in going to trial. We have one who is back at Eastern for the second time, because when he returned from Eastern the first time after an extended stay, and I don't know the reason, I'm not in the courtroom. They have a scheduled court appearance, it gets postponed, and it gets postponed, and it gets postponed. And this isn't once or twice, this is for months and months and months. Now this person is now off the deep end again because he's refused meds since his return. So now he's back at Eastern for another competency evaluation. My fear is we're just going to keep playing this game over and over. He's been incarcerated for over a year, and it's a little frustrating. The majority of that time spent at Eastern, but when he is in custody, it takes a lot of time when you're dealing with the mentally ill. We have a second one right now who will be doing the same thing. He's been incarcerated over a year, and we're on round 2 for competency. So it's very frustrating. It's not only frustrating for us, it's also, I'm sure, frustrating for the person who's incarcerated because they don't understand. Last week, I attended the Washington Sheriff's Association meeting in Ellensburg. There was a really good turnout of people there. There's some new changes in the pursuit law coming up effective June 6th. It will require a policy change with the sheriff's office, but it will open back up the pursuits more reasonable than they have been since the law changed a couple years ago. And then last, real quick, sorry, I was writing this in a hurry this morning, so I didn't put everything down. I just hand wrote a couple notes. We got a LIMWA grant. It's a law enforcement mental health wellness grant through Hood River County Sheriff's Office. And Stephen Bradley, we're finalizing the details, but he'll be doing ride-alongs with the deputies, unlike where we have with behavioral health, where they would be doing a crisis response. This is solely designated for the mental health wellness of the deputy that they're riding with. Secondary, he can respond to a crisis as well out in the field. He's licensed in both Oregon and Washington. So this really is focusing on the mental health wellness of patrol staff. So it's an exciting program. Wasco County and Hood River County Sheriff's Office both already have this program going, and it's been very successful over there. So looking out for our mental health and our own staff is extremely important. That's about all I have. Do you have any questions?
I would interject one thing with the new pursuit law. And to be honest with you, I haven't had a chance to look through the entire law on that, but it will give us the ability to pursue on suspicion. The only thing that I'm concerned about, I believe it's going to require an on-ground supervisor, not by phone, authorizing pursuits and so forth. So I need to look at that. If that's the case, we've been toying with the idea of promoting within corporals. In other words, not hiring more people from outside, but offering a corporal positions. It'd be about 3 or 4%.
4%, yeah.
Difference. But anyway, we'll bring this back to the board when we get a chance to review the pursuit law. Because if it's going to require us to have an officer, supervisor on shift, we only got 3 sergeants. So right now we can't do that. And we have an on-duty soup we call supervisor that gets a phone call. But if we're not allowed to do that by phone, then we have a lot of liability there when we don't have a supervisor on shift and the pursuit starts out. So I'm sure they're going to authorize, it has to be authorized by a supervisor to complete the pursuit, or you discontinue the pursuit. And we have policy in place right now to be on some of these property crime type things. If the pursuit gets too dangerous to the general public, we shut it down anyway. So anyway, I just throw that out there. We'll be back to you, I'm sure, requesting that information.
I have one question on the accident audit report stuff with all your stuff that you've been doing. What is forwarded to sergeant? Why do they forward it to sergeant?
Because it has to be, the sergeant has to review their case and sign off on it to move it forward through the.
Before it goes to the prosecutor?
Yep.
That makes
Right,
sense. Okay.
right.
Yeah, I just saw those and I'm like, the other ones I understood, but that one I didn't.
Right.
I didn't know your procedure there, so now I got it. Perfect.
Yeah, it goes to the sergeant and then it goes to the records department, and then she does her magic with paperwork and documents and goes on from there.
All I have.
Good morning. So Jen and I have been sharing documents and budget, and I've put our budget and revenue into one worksheet so that we don't have to go to multiple areas to find the document. And that's been working successfully. And then I also did one for VRNR so that we can just share the same document. So we're not tracking multiple spreadsheets.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, it makes it easy. And so we can just see things easily. So for the budget review, I've been billing as much as I can. And so I've brought in more than 25% of our anticipated revenue. So hopefully I'll even bring in more over the than is anticipated for the year, because we always like to bring in more money than we need. And so that's good news. And where we're sitting right now overall for our general fund budget is expenditures as of yesterday at 76.8%. So we're sitting accurately. You'll notice in the jail, we have high expenses for inmate medical and the meals. So those meals are the week and a half where KVH, we paid KVH to pay, to make the meals, and those were at a much higher rate than our Airmark.
During the storm.
During the storm. So that's specific to what that is. So any questions on that section?
I don't. Jake, any questions for budget? Dan? No?
Okay, so I'll run through this so that you guys can catch up for the rest of your day. Civil Division, we are processing CPLs. You'll be receiving tomorrow, the front office will be receiving an authorization to purchase for a new printer for our hard cards, which print our hard IDs plus our CPLs. And so we're going to pull funds from that. It'll be some out of patrol, some out of the jail, and some out of our posse to print those hard cards. And so that will come.
Your printer giving up the ghost?
It has given up the ghost. I have done everything I can and tried every trick I could before having to actually buy a new one. So
Have you tried a hammer?
I have seen Office Space and I have thought of it.
Actually, off top of grain growers would probably be the most
Yeah.
ideal.
So that will be coming to you and then we will start printing like mad women. Rochelle is excited to be able to give people hard CPLs. Speaking of CPLs, a side note, Home and Garden Show. We will be taking our show on the road and doing original CPL applications at the Home and Garden Show. So we will be able to do our fingerprints and do what we normally do here in the office at the Home and Garden Show. So please, public, come and visit us there.
You did scare me because you said on a side note and you looked at me. I thought you were going to say yours is expiring.
No, I would not do that to you.
I thought she was gonna tell you we revoked yours.
No, we want everyone who can have a CPL to have one for $49.25. So we are also planning for a sheriff's sale. So look for that to be coming in the paper and for Rochelle to be able to stand on the front steps of the courthouse and say, hear ye, hear ye. Sex offenders, let's skip down to that. We are down a few sex offenders because they have moved out of the county. And we have contacted 2 of our absconders. One has moved out of the county. And then one has contacted us and become reactive. And then he has now moved out of the county. So we went from 4 to 2. Those other 2 are going to remain absconded and they are being looked at by the marshals. So, and then Range Timber, we are meeting with the timber companies today at 2:00. Body worn camera program is working beautifully. Our K9 team will be, they're connecting with the drug trainer so that we can train for them to be certified and we can use them for drug searches then. And that will be paid out of our investigations fund, not from our general fund. Marine program, we ramp up. April 30th, we can start manning our boat on the water hours. So look for us to be on the water then. Before then, the boat will be over at Clover Island doing the boat operators. But try that again. Basic Marine law enforcement training. It's always a mouthful. And we will be sending 2 deputies to that course. So we will have actually a lot of deputies that are allowed to drive the boat. And so we will be out in force this summer. And then posse members, I do want to say thank you to them for coming and sitting in the jail and assisting with the needs over the weekend. And then posse scouts, we will be having our next scout meeting on April 6th. So we've had a very quiet winter, but we look forward to everybody being very active as the events wrap up. And I know that Carmen has an announcement about our range timber deputy.
So Range Timber Deputy Chris Simons stopped in our office yesterday. He's got some family matters that require his full attention, and he submitted a letter of resignation yesterday. He will be available to help volunteer with some of the items, but his family comes first, and we understand that. So now we have another program to get figured out on a quick note.
We have 0 timber range deputies now then?
Well, we got a couple volunteers. Tom Dewey out of the West End, he volunteers to go out. He's one of our posse members. So we do have some, not to the level we want, but we do have some people out there
Is that a summer, remind me, is that a summer program or a year?
year round, year round.
Just more hours in the summer.
Yeah, winter months, depending, it cuts down on the hours. But we have one individual that we're looking at it, put in an application prior to law enforcement. So we'll pursue that to see if he's still interested. If not, then we'll be recruiting to get a couple people.
Questions, concerns?
I think last month we had talked about the dog grant
Yes.
potential. Are we gonna have an update this month like we talked about, or are we gonna do it?
We had a board meeting. I was hoping to have the numbers from Rick Millerin to be able to give you some idea, but he wasn't able to get them back to me before our update today. And so I've submitted some of the documents that Commerce needed. I'm waiting for those numbers to come back, and basically an overview. We've cut the building down to a very manageable size. Like I said, I'm just waiting for the numbers to come back from Rick, so I know. But we still have 600 and I can't remember the dollar amount off the top of my head. But
170,000, was that what the grant was?
yeah. And so what we're doing is cutting the building down as small as possible so that we can fund one deputy animal control person for multiple years. And then the board is going to be responsible for coming up with many other funding sources, like connecting with the dog food company and veterinarian companies to get vaccines, that type of thing, and coming up with contracts with the local veterinarians for visiting services. And they're going to have their own 501c3, so they're working on that part. But our sustainability will be I'm looking at a 5-year plan and then folding it into our budget and partnering with City of Goldendale. But like I said, I'm waiting for the numbers to come back from Rick after the redesign. Because it was a larger building to start with, and now it's phase 1 now, down to phase 1.
Also the utility hookups.
Yeah, the utility hookups are supposed to be. And so yeah. So as soon as I have that number, then I can bring it to you. I realize that the public is peppering you with things, and to be clear, we're when meeting with the board last Friday, we are not going to be housing every other animal in the county. It is not going to be a spay and neuter clinic. It is not going to be a kill shelter. We are going to set it up to be a short-term shelter so that we can then have the animals move out to qualified adoption centers so that we can provide the need of lost puppy. We're going to do some encouraging of microchipping so that lost animals, lost dogs can be relocated with their parents, so that when Joe Smith picks puppy up off of Hewsome or any other little side road like Bickleton and brings them into town, the vet can scan the microchip and we can get it returned back to its rightful owner rather than the lost dog being just a main lost dog. So we're promoting the microchipping as well. We'll come up with some fees on that so that we can charge for microchipping if we need to. So.
Are you planning to bring the 501c3's budget in front of the BoCC? Because what happens if you can't get the revenues that you were expecting, however you were expecting to do it, then it would, of course, somehow likely fall on top of the county because we're going to be
Understood.
talking about, and so I just trying to
Yes.
see if that's something you want to bring in front of us.
I think that the board chairman and co-chairman should be part of this conversation with you. I'm just sort of the mediator. It's landed in my lap and I'm trying to encourage them to connect with you guys as well. So we'll come and do a giant dog and pony show and let them contain their business plan. So yes, I'm encouraging them to do that with you.
We're not going to accept ponies, are we? That was just the pun.
That was just a pun. Since I am the county designated comedian most of the time. But yeah, I do not plan on being the person who is championing this throughout its entirety. I will get it built, but this is not my expertise.
How many kennels did they cut it down to? You said smaller facility. How many?
I still have the 4 dangerous dogs section, and then I've got 2 in an isolation room and 2 out in the main front room. So we basically have the 8 rather than like 18. So
And do we know, can the state grant or appropriation be used for actual paying of the position for multiple years? Because
Yes.
doesn't the grant expire? Like, don't you have to have it under construction and, you know,
yes, it was set up as a multi-year grant. And that was what, and so and that is what I know so far. I haven't seen them say no. And so, but my goal is to get this sucker built.
I just know that, you know, like everything, it has to be reauthorized during the biennium or
Right.
during the next biennium in order to continue to get it. And so I don't even, but again, this is nothing's come through us. So I have no idea how it worked, how it was done with Gina. So.
Yeah, it came to my lap after the fact too. So
I would imagine we will see it eventually because we will have to be the ones that sign the approval for it. So
that would be correct.
I would
yeah.
imagine at that time we'll get all the documentation and
Yeah. But I'm going to make sure that we are not going to be losing any money on this and that the 5-year plan is built in so that we can afford to fund it without having any loss to the county.
said, I guess I can come out with and air my worry right off the bat, and that is volunteer hours and volunteer donations. I think we've seen that evidently with the Profi Fund, where we got money the first year and then we were supposed to have money every year to pay for that, and it hasn't happened. That I worry that this one's going to turn into the same.
Well, we are still receiving funds, but we haven't actively been fundraising for Profi this year or last year.
Right, that's my point. That started with when I was a citizen in the room.
Yeah.
Of the nonprofit is going to raise money to pay for the dog, so there wouldn't be any county expense for the dog. And then the number of donations for the dog is just kind of gradually fallen, and that's my worry with the dog shelter too, is the number of people willing to volunteer or the number of dollars that get donated.
Has the county paid for Profi?
What's that?
Has the county paid for that dog?
Just in training and things like that.
Oh.
Right, the drug fund has paid for most of his training.
So my point with the dog shelter is that if you don't receive the nonprofit dollars to operate it,
right,
then like Commissioner Anderson said, it would fall back on the county to backfill for that.
I agree.
So that's the worry I have.
I agree.
Anything else?
We look forward to seeing both the design and the plan and the backup plan to the backup plan of what happens if, you know, as Commissioner Christopher was saying, the volunteers don't go through or the vet doesn't volunteer their time or the
Right.
actual costs.
Understood.
Great. So I won't let you leave yet. I get to talk too for a minute because I see Mr. Gallagher back there. I know when I came into this position, I came and I visited with every department. And Bob and I visited about electeds being separate people. But I let him know that if there was smoke coming out of his window, I was going to be over there. Not in the intent of enforcement, but the intent of goodwill and being a good partner, because I see the electeds and the departments as a team all together that help make this function for the public. So I don't know, do you guys watch Zoom over there? Some departments watch the Zoom while we're going through it. The county commissioners seem to be the place that even though you're elected, they'll call us about departments, but even though you're elected, they'll call us about electeds too. We're the dumping ground. We get all the questions. And so today we kind of, we do get updates from the sheriff. We're only as good as the information that we get from the sheriff. And like Mr. Christopher said, we're waiting for facts. Otherwise, we're operating in a void or we're operating off of gossip. And we just need to be very clear that we have concerns and the public has great concerns about the humanity and how we can go forward to help and how we can go forward with where we're at. And we had an update today about the boat, about the, we had an update about the jail inmates. We had an update about the dog, but we did not address the elephant in the room. And I just didn't know if you wanted to take a second and talk about, you know, the things that are happening at the jail that the public's concerned about. I wanted to give you that public forum after the questions we had today.
Well, I agree with you that we should be in a partnership, but never lose sight of elected officials' independence from the board, period. Okay, as long as we're clear on that. Secondly, if citizens are calling in complaints, pass it to the sheriff.
Sure.
You don't have to handle those complaints. Pass it to the sheriff. He's elected. They don't like me, they'll recall me or not elect me. One of the two.
That's
It's
right.
that simple.
Okay.
As far as going into detail on the jail, it's in mitigation, possible lawsuits. I'm not going to sit here and go into detail on that, regardless what citizen out there wants that information. Same with the Hannah Walker case. We've made our decision. They got a problem with it. They can contact an attorney and go after the sheriff, period.
Okay.
Does that answer it?
That answers it. Thank you very much.
I have one more.
Yes.
This is I saw in for today, our bills that we paid, there was a charge from EMS district for transport from the jail to the hospital. Do we pay 50% of the cost? Because it was weird how they had written this was
Right.
the cost and it said, this is your balance, but it didn't say 50% deduction or anything
Yep.
else.
We pay 50%,
Okay, we pay 50%. Now,
like the hospital bills.
here's where it jumps into the fire. Chief Deputy Colt brought up that there was a transport issue during our public meeting. Did we get billed for that? Or when he ended up taking the person to the hospital? Do we know?
Well, I need to know who the person was.
He
Yeah, she can get that and I can email you and let you
I
know.
just want to make sure.
ended up taking it.
Yeah, we ended
Oh.
up taking the person.
I don't believe EMS charges you to respond to the scene. They only charge you if they actually do the transport, but I could be
Right.
wrong.
Right, but they put the person in, they took it out. That's what.
There might be some, yeah, that could.
No,
be
I
an
would,
option.
I mean, if
We can check
it's
that.
it's $1,000, so I want to make sure we didn't pay for it if it was such an issue.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you, though. Trying to save every penny we can.
Which is why we look at those with a very fine tooth comb and confirm A, if it's ours, and B, that they occurred.
Yep, okay.
And see that you didn't already pay them 3 times because you continue to get billed for the same thing.
Yeah, we also do that.
Also, you guys had approved, was it 2 weeks ago, the Chevy truck and the Durangos for purchase?
Oh, right.
We have already received the Chevy truck. It's sitting over here in the lot.
Were you guys zoomed in when we were doing the Public Works? Public Works didn't go through the state contractor to get vehicles. They just went out to public bid. And they got some really good prices that were better than the state deals and less sales tax. So hopefully when you move forward with next year's vehicles, we can put together some kind of package and let you go out to public bid and see what's out
That
there.
would
You
be
might get better choices at better prices.
That would be wonderful if we could do that, because our options were very, very limited
Yep.
with the state bid.
Based on who the guy was that owned the dealership and what he had on the lot. I want to give you more. If I give you more choices, you might find a cheaper choice.
Absolutely.
And then that would benefit the taxpayers.
And
So
we
that's
could
what
get
we're
the
trying to do
vehicles
too.
quicker.
Okay. Yeah, but that's the other thing. They're on the lot right here.
Right.
So you don't have to wait 6 months for a fleet transfer. But anyway, we're working on it. We'll give you more information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gallagher, treasurer. Yeah, we sneak by again.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'm here for a Finance Committee meeting update. We did not meet last Friday. We met the Friday before, but the agendas are different, so we didn't get on the agenda last week. So we're on the agenda this week to go through the items that we covered. The first item that we talked about was the there was a meeting with the City of the Dalles finance director and the auditor and the treasurer, just to kind of make sure we're all on the same page with how the money is flowing for the airport, so that we can get it categorized correctly, because I know that their economic development's working on some loans and some grants and everything like that and some construction. So we wanted to make sure that we were on the same page with Angie in the City of the Dalles. It was a good meeting. And so we talked about that, just how that will have to work. We did have a small discussion about the Klickitat mill site in regards to the grant that they're working on getting, and kind of going back through the mill site in the tax title process, because the property is tax title. We talked about, actually, we did not talk about, we are in the process of reviewing and have handouts of the vehicle policy, the procurement policy, the SBITA policy, and leases. And we also briefly talked about fixed assets and travel policies. The SBITA policy, just because it was new to me for your folks, it is a policy that is required by the state auditor to look at software that we're leasing or web host. It's hosted on the web. So it's got a subscription base. So that's what that is. We talked a little bit about solid waste budgeting and accounting in regards to job costing, and that if it may or may not be needed, could we eliminate that? And could that be a test case for in some offices if we needed to do job costing or not? So we're going to, Jen was going to work with them on that. Heather and I attended the regional fire district, a work group meeting for the regional fire district in, I guess it's Houston. I mean, it's the Houston City of White Salmon Regional Fire District. And so we attended that meeting. It was the first working group meeting. And we reported back to the finance committee, mostly as we're just working with them to get set up and figure out how the pieces and parts. We would probably attend future meetings just via Zoom, but we wanted to go down and meet some of the folks and make sure that if they were needing anything, because I will be the treasurer, and Heather will be the auditor for them, and possibly produce accounts payable. We had a discussion about the establishment of Fund 146, which is licensing, which per the audit last year, we're separating licensing dollars out. So we were trying to figure out how, when we start that fund out, how it's going to work. So we wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page. Seems to be working well, starting at the end of February. So that's good. Had a report on opioid settlements, and that in the next meeting, we would get a little bit more information as those dollars, Jen was doing some analysis, I think, and working with the health, with Aaron on some pieces with that. So that got pushed out a month. We
talked about the budget checker and how it works in the system. And we decided to wait to see how the installation of the new Kayenta will go before we make any changes to the current method. So obviously in 2023, we'll keep doing it the same way. The budget checker is just that what balances and make sure that if anything's going through accounts payable or anything, and that it's staying under check. So we agreed that that's the best place to keep it. And then we have a meeting for the 19th at 9 o'clock. So those are the items we talked about. And any questions?
Nope, it was a good meeting.
It was. We got all kinds of stuff going. So it
Yeah.
was good. Very good.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. You guys have a good one.
Thank you.
So we bypassed Commissioner miscellaneous reports and comments today. To keep is there anybody that would like to bring something up? Mr. Christopher,
Can we move that to the afternoon?
yes.
It's under whatever unfinished business. So afternoon
Okay.
business and add it in there. I might have
Okay.
something to bring up. I gotta do a couple phone calls later.
Okay, commissioners updates. Did you catch up?
I like that it's on there twice though.
Okay.
Madam
So-
Chair, I would make a motion to recess for the lunch hour.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned for lunch and we will see you back here at 1 o'clock. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Welcome back to the Board of County Commissioners afternoon session for March 26th. And this afternoon, we have with us the Coalition Preventing Abuse in Klickitat County update from Sunday Sutton.
And
we're waiting on computers.
and co-presenter is Abby Brandt Whalen.
Oh, thank you. I did not have that on the agenda. Thank you.
I'm just tech support.
No.
I have a feeling you're much more than that to some people.
So Abby is the CPAC's chair. So she does a lot of work.
All right, Sunday should be just a second and we're up.
Recording in progress.
Getting close.
So I really appreciate you giving us the time today to talk about our program. I recognize you guys are really busy and we're unable to attend our key leader event. So it's nice that we actually now get to present to all of you.
There we go.
Did your computer audio turned off?
It was connected to the room because I was plugged in on your cord, so I had to change audio
Got it. I
source.
was gonna say, I got a little
But now we're
feedback
good.
and then it stopped, so.
All right, Sunday, you're live.
Well, we need to advance. I did the welcome already. Go to 2.
We'll just go to 2 this way.
So CPAC's mission is to work within the community, reducing abuse and promoting healthy choices, developing environment of wellness throughout our county through education, positive opportunity, and advocacy. We focus on youth substance misuse, reducing adult substance use, as well as reducing intimate partner and family violence. And we do this and also the long-term consequences of those behaviors. We focus on the promotion of health and wellness throughout our county, and we do that in various ways. Let's continue.
I gotta figure out how it's gonna let me tab forward. There you go.
It's just gonna be one of those days. So we are a 501c3, meaning that we can receive funds and apply for grants on our own. But we also are a recipient of a Community Prevention and Wellness Initiative grant that is housed with Washington Gorge Action Program. They are our fiscal agent. So we are able to do quite a few things with those two funding streams. It also helps us be more sustainable as a coalition. The CPWI funding is administered through Washington State Health Care Authority, the Division of Behavioral Health and Recovery. And that was provided to this county because we had high rates of substance use and opiate abuse. Also, we had a lot of risk factors with our youth, low academic rates, dropping out, things like that. So we have the CPWI grant, which is currently $130,000 a year. That covers my salary and also provides us funding for different programs that we institute throughout the city. In addition, CPAC has revenues and funds through the Domestic Violence Impact Panel, which we do quarterly. And then we also have received funding from different grants provided by WellPoint and also the Ross Foundation. We use some of that funding for our town hall events as well as our community family-free activities. We also have a volunteer base. These numbers are low, and I know that because I'm still learning how to report our volunteer hours. But we had over 380 reported volunteer hours at $37 per hour. That's about $14,000 in manpower donated. Which, you know, we are of value to this community. We provide a lot of resource and opportunity. The other people who donate are individuals have donated to the program as well as small businesses within our area.
So we stay pretty busy as a volunteer coalition. We have 13 coalition meetings per year. And on top of that, we have 12 leadership meetings a month. So those of us that have been elected to the coalition, we meet additionally once per month. During the past year, we've really focused on increasing community awareness of the coalition. And we've done this by, as a group, tabling at 7 different community events. We've co-hosted or advertised for 2 different take-back events which are opportunities for community members to get rid of unused medications. We've handed out 47 medication lock boxes or bags in an effort to keep medications out of the hands of people that shouldn't get to them, like maybe a senior who forgets how often they've taken their medication, or a young child that just kind of goes exploring through your medicine cabinet. We've hosted 10 community family fun activities. These have been free for community members to attend. We have had 2 groups of youth attend youth conferences in the state focused on prevention. And those have been youth from our Goldendale Middle School and High School. We've hosted 4 domestic violence impact panels, which Sunday talked about. We hosted 2 rounds of parenting classes. We hosted 3 community presentations or town halls where we educated the community about a topic and engaged them in dialogue. And included in our 13 coalition meetings was our coalition planning event for the year, where we sit and we look at the data from what our healthy youth survey is saying and what our community survey is saying on how the coalition is doing and what community perceptions of use are. And we use that to inform our decisions for the rest of the year. So I have some photos of some of the times CPAC has been in the media this last year. You might be familiar with our billboard up in the top right corner. That's off of, so you turn off of 97 by Dairy Queen, and it's over there by,
It's
yeah,
actually
Stormies.
towards
Yeah, Freedom Automotive, yeah.
I guess by the U-Haul.
The U-Haul, I mean, there's only one place for U-Hauls now. Go ahead.
And that is, that's one of the programs we promote within our community, which is starts with one. And it's really about having the communication, having the conversations about opiate substance use and misuse.
Our other events, we have 4 photos here from community family fun events. We had Santa Claus visit us from the North Pole, take photos with families. Oftentimes that's something people have to travel to Hood River to do, and they have to pay for it. So we were really excited to be able to offer that for free in the community. And then we had some Christmas crafts that were happening at the same event. We had a bingo night you can see photos of, and I think we have another photo from one of our community breakfasts. And then we have 2 photos of folks tabling, one at our Halloween downtown trunk or treat,
where we partner with the youth group.
Yep. And we have photos from us at the Klickitat County Fair, hiding under the grandstands from the heat. All right, Sunday.
So in addition to the $130,000 that CPAC gets, that's housed in WAGAP, there is another part of that funding which goes to support a student assisted professional in our schools. That person is hired through ESD 112 and managed through ESD 112, but it's the grant funding that pays for that position. Our student assisted professional is Angela Kruger, and she's amazing in our schools. She has really built up a wonderful youth program in both the middle and the high school. And she's been working at for a few years now. She has had 785 full interventions with students within our school, and has served 58 individual students. So her goals were to increase sense of hope within the student body, increase perception of risk, decrease student substance use, decrease antisocial behaviors, and remove barriers to academic success within our school system.
Is that grant, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Is that granting program for her services stable? In other words, we think it's going to continue for the next unforeseen amount of years? Or we just don't know until the next biennium and cross our fingers and hope?
Well, as much grant funding happens, it kind of depends on the state, but right now there's a huge push in our state for these prevention services. And these services have been proven effectual, tremendously effectual. So though there is always some variances in the grants, the healthcare authority is pretty confident that these fundings will maintain. And if they were to drop, like, I don't think they're just going to automatically disappear, but if they were to drop, the healthcare authority Washington State Healthcare Authority works very hard to try to work it so that coalitions are not suffering. They manage their funding well. And there actually was a scare this last year, and they pulled through and they were able to get the funding they needed and be able to resource.
Well, that's kind of the point of my question is I haven't heard of a funding scare for that program.
Right.
Even though I know it's fairly new for us anyway. I guess I want to be kept in the loop if you think there is a funding scare, if there's something we can do. Letters of support, lobbying our legislature, whatever, to make sure you guys don't lose that, because
Yeah,
it's important.
it is very important. And I appreciate that, those thoughts and that effort. And believe me, there would be a reach out. And it is always helpful when you see legislation happening, anything that promotes prevention and the decrease of availability. It is always a good thing to support. So thank you for that.
I would say Angela is one of 4 student assistance professionals in Klickitat County that are supported by these funds.
Yeah.
Some of them managed a little bit differently. Maybe they go just through the ESD instead of working with a partner funder.
And the other thing I would say is CPAC is working finding ways to become sustainable. So regardless of the changing economy, we are the longest running coalition in this prevention coalition in this county. We've been at this since 2005. So we have found a way, even through the lean times, to provide services. So some of Angela's highlights are she met her goal of 50 students. She actually exceeded that goal. She did 18 of 58 students were in 5th grade. So that's early intervention. And that's really wonderful to try focusing. The earlier we can start providing services and resources and coping skills, the less they are at risk. 96% of students responded that they were more likely to come to school and would continue coming to school after participating in the program. And 33% reduction in suspensions reported after participation in the program. She wanted to point out that nicotine was the most reported substance by youth in her program. And we just did a vape night there at the high school. For the high school, because that was something that they requested for parents to have that access. So yeah, so this is the high school prevention club. They do activities throughout the year. There's one of them on the parade. They partnered with Recovery Cafe as well as CPAC and decorated the parade, the float, and had a great time. The gratitude list, so they're at the school, they have opportunities to decorate the walls there. They focus on Kindness Week and different things throughout the year to really promote wellness and health and also connection. And they also do a teacher support day as well. And then this is some of the students in the upper left. And then the lower left is activities that they do at lunchtime and stuff with other students to engage them. And they also, the youth developed a survey as well and sent it out to the schools. And then that was one of the conferences they went to where they got to present that to the state with a whole bunch of other youth coalitions. This is the youth or the middle school leadership group. And as you see, they're pretty active as well. They do similar events. I love that it's cohesive throughout the schools, though they get to choose what they do. It meets, they're doing like Kindness Week in the same week and Gratitude Week for the same weeks. So one of the boards that they have up is the challenge, and they went on, they put out some information on, what are some challenges and how can they meet those.
So like any good presentation, we have an ask of how you can help. So we would just encourage, like Sunday said, that you continue to advocate for prevention funding. There's often opportunities for the commissioners to weigh in on what's important, and we'll be sure as the coalition to keep you in mind if there's a specific opportunity that we feel like needs a letter of support, or there's something that we'd like to provide education for you about. If you have the opportunity to use your voice and then participate, you are welcome to come to a meeting, an activity, or an event. Please help share and promote those if you have the opportunity, or you have a family member here in town that you think would benefit from those. Just getting the word out is always helpful.
For us, we have our own unique view of our community from our own perspective, as do you. And so your voice is important to us.
And we just always want to take the opportunity to thank our many partners in the community, our sponsors, folks who have donated time, energy, resources, whether it's by having someone from their business or agency serve as a member of the CPAC coalition, or just they've contributed in kind or financial support to the projects that we've done this year.
One of the mentions up there is the Prevent Coalition and the Prevent Rural. Those are through Clark County, but the rural is actually statewide. So CPAC participates in those meetings, and we participate in helping develop programs throughout our state, different modules, programs that we can put forth, like the Starts With One program. We did not have anything to do with that, but we are helping to develop some of the verbiage and wordage. And also for rural communities specific, we know that rural communities, there's a difference in how you engage and reach out and what programs will work and what don't, so what does not. So we participate in that also. And that is shared, like I said, there's coalitions throughout the state that participate in that.
And then I would like to add that all of these groups are important, but the little icon of our YouTube meeting is hiding Our Father's House is the one that's underneath there.
Oh,
So make sure they get their kudos.
most definitely.
All right, and we keep a pretty busy calendar. So this is where you can look to see us and what we're going to be busy with in the next few months. June is the end of our grant cycle funding, so we'll have some planning sessions to think about our strategic plan for the coming year, and we'll be launching off strong. But in the meantime, we've got monthly family-free events. We'll be at the Home and Garden Show doing some events or activities for little ones, and also helping support a dance that's happening there.
Great.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Can you go up on one screen?
Of course.
So the $130,000 you get, how many other organizations that are, I guess, your equals get those dollars too in Klickitat County?
So there are 2 other CPWI grant recipients in the county. One is K-Link, which is the White Salmon area, and one is Classic, which is Lyle and Klickitat. We also have a drugs-free community grant in our county, which is supposed to cover the rest of the county. And that is with Joanna Turner. She is the coalition chair for that.
Is that for our Klickitat or which one's that?
Yeah, our Klickitat is the name of that
Yep.
drug-free.
Okay, and that's
Community grant.
countywide
Correct.
versus
Yep.
your, okay, and all 3 of them get those same dollars?
It's from actually different pots of money. So
Okay.
drug-free community is from a different pot than the Healthcare Authority's CPWI funds. The funding purpose for our Klickitat is to do overall community connections to health. And then what's their substance of focus
For our Klickitat?
for our Klickitat?
I don't know that they have a specific, I think it's marijuana and tobacco.
I think
yeah.
that's what it is, marijuana, tobacco. So
And-
every community gets to do a community survey, and they also do that Washington Healthy Use Survey, and that'll indicate what are the substances that are most prevalent. So the CPWI funding per city might have a different focus too on what it's supposed to do. Like we were originally awarded the funds for opioids because we had a high number of use. Now, thankfully, we're seeing lower numbers because the money is working, the program is working, but we are seeing rises in use of things like nicotine. So now we're thinking about how we help focus on that substance in our community versus just opiates.
The drugs-free community grant also, their funding is $250,000 a year. And they just got the next 5 years approved.
But you mainly focus with children with substance abuse, correct?
No.
You do adult substance abuse just like the other groups that do adult substance abuse?
So
Different.
our focus is to reduce the consequences of substance use and relational abuse. So like our DV panel, it's adult. It's for adult people who may have been charged or convicted of a violent or assault in our county. And actually it's state because we're virtual. We do people come in throughout the state to that DV panel. So what I'm saying, we're not strictly youth. We focus on the CPWI grant focuses on reduction of youth substance misuse, but CPAC as a whole focuses on much more.
As we think about our rural community and what are the risk factors that might drive a youth to choosing to try a substance, Oftentimes, the data tells us that it's lack of family buy-in or support from a caring adult to help a youth when they're in those formative years, figuring out how to make important decisions.
Or the parents do it too, so the child does it as
Exactly.
well.
There's this standard of behavior that's already existed within the environment. So as we think about how we do education and prevention with youth, it's creating that buy-in to community through fun family community events that says Goldendale is a place that there is something to do, that you can be busy, you can be involved and buy into this community now before you are struggling with maybe your mental health or with economic decisions, or you just choose to follow the example that you're seeing. So yes, we focus on youth, but we also have to think about how do we change the overall family structures in our communities so that the models those youth are seeing are also making better choices.
Yeah, and it's through the spectrum, prevention, substance use, recovery, because good recovery is prevention.
Is there a good one pager on the differences between our Klickitat, K-Link, you guys, and whatever? I mean, there's a lot of pieces that tie together here. And if we don't have a good understanding of how they all tie together, I guarantee the community probably doesn't have a very
Like,
good
to me, in my brain, I think there's 5 different groups kind of doing the same thing. Just by kind of what you're all dabbling in, but you know, maybe you're not doing the exact same thing.
Right. No.
But yeah, I don't know, going forward for us and why I'm curious is because with part of the push to get my seatmates to accept the state's opioid settlement funds, we're gonna have to figure out what we want to do with those funds. And if we're going to set up something in a county department with a county employee doing something. But to me, I don't want to reinvent the wheel if somebody out there is already doing what we want. So to me, that almost opens up a discussion by this board of how do we want to see those dollars used? And if we have some kind of a breakdown on what each group does, we might say, okay, we really want to focus on children, so we want it here and we're going to do a contract with you and it's to focus on children. Or it might be one of the other agencies, I don't know, but we've never had that discussion as a board because we're confused. I'm confused. I'll speak for
Yeah,
myself.
I appreciate that. I would like to share with you that it has been our focus as coordinators. We meet bi-weekly, all the coordinators in our county, because it's important also to create a united voice throughout our county. Like it's just strength that way. And also that repetitiveness helps bring those messages more clear. Now we, like Abby has shared, we have different focuses based on our CPWI funding that says you have to cover this and you have to cover that. Many of those programs are similar. But as a whole, we come together, like how can we support each other and how can we find where the loopholes are? How can we cover those bare places in our county and our community and what's needed in prevention work to make it work? Our youth have gotten together. Our youth have done conferences together. So the youth is uniting in their voice as well. I loved your question about a breakdown. WAGAP has our coalitions listed on the website. However, I do not think they have classics.
They do. They have Classic and then a link to Classic's website.
And a link to their website. So they have some of that information there. But I would love to bring that up at our next coordinators meeting and see what we can put together for you.
I really like your diversity because that's what our communities are. And we see that in the work we do from west to east, the diversities. And I stay in touch with Classic and I hear from Joanna. I have time to read things and stuff, but a lot of times I just can't get to meetings. So it's good to me to hear how you fit to your communities, each different one for their needs, but then you still come together so you can share your successes and what could fit in another community. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, and if I can also speak to the ongoing coordination. When I first got involved with the CPAC coalition, I also got introduced to the other coalitions in the county, and I really appreciate that that introduction was made. and I now sit on all of them.
Uh-oh.
I know, but I do say that, well, there are voices and faces that are at all of those meetings and kind of have that continued valley of information flowing between them. There's also unique voices that come to each of those meetings. So the county is working really hard to make sure that everyone's bought in. And while we know that not one size fits all for all of our communities in terms of what education they're interested in and what programming meets the needs of their community and the capacity of their volunteers, they are communicating really well. So I'm sure Sunday we'll come back with some more information for you.
I'm looking at the WAGAP page right now. And so are you guys kind of under WAGAP's umbrella then? Is everybody underneath that? The way it comes out, you go to WAGAP, you go to our coalitions, and then each one has a little bit of information. I'm just trying to put it all together and piece it together and how it all works. And more importantly, you guys have come and spoke to us before, but I don't think we've ever heard from our Klickitat or Classic or K-Link. And it's always good to know what everybody's doing.
We can definitely put a bug in their ear. And myself, Christian McReith and Joanna Turner are under WAGAP. They are the fiscal agent for our grants.
Okay.
And which coordinators?
They're just the pass through.
Right, they're just the pass
Their
through.
own coalition. their
Yep.
own group, bylaws. They're just that.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And Sheila Crapper with Classic, which is Klickitat and Lyle, she is through ESD 112. So there are variances in the programs that we promote and the way that they're promoted.
Yeah, for me, I would love to see, I guess I'd say a breakdown on one page or 27 pages on what you all do, and then what you see as the gaps that you'd like to fill, you just don't have the funding to fill it. Kind of scenario. And because like I said, I don't know that this board is hiring a new employee to do something to do with opioids to be able to use those opioid funds. I don't know that it would qualify for a full-time employee, even if we tried. But I also don't want to develop a county position that's reinventing the wheel, that's doing something that somebody else is already doing. But we need to know when we run across somebody in the jail or in probation or wherever that we can, go here, go here, go here, based on what you guys all do. And I think that will let us have discussions on our opioid funds of where we want to move forward with too. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just me.
I appreciate that perspective and also that thought process that you're putting into this. I will say that those opioid dollars would benefit our whole county. So I hope that you find a way to accept those and then utilize them well. And I think that
it was not easy
Yeah.
to get a second vote to utilize those funds, but we did.
Great.
It's not easy to continue because there will be a third phase coming, which will be a whole another vote, which I hope passes, because they can be used somewhere. I don't want to just let them go and go back to the drug manufacturer that got everybody addicted.
Right.
So yeah, that has my support. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions?
Good presentation.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
time.
Yes.
Most definitely. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And great questions.
Yeah, but we sent you home with homework.
Yeah, I don't mind.
We always have homework.
I don't mind. A one pager.
I
Let's see.
will let
You
you
said 20
pass
home.
all that homework off to Abby though. She's probably used to it if she sits on 27 different coalitions.
Yeah. It's just,
Thank you, ladies.
yeah, you guys have a good afternoon. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I needed to update one thing too. During lunch, the auditor called and she was able to make contact with the contractor looking at the districts. And she would like to come back in close to 2:30 somewhere and give us an update on things that she's found. So, I see our planning department is in the room and I don't see it on the schedule. Am I missing something? Oh, so that is for them?
No, no. I don't know. That's not for them.
That's not,
That's just the next thing on the agenda.
okay.
We heard this morning that the Snowden rezone was added to the agenda. That's why we're here. To the,
Thank you.
I thought it was a
Okay.
rezone for a new business, unless I misheard.
It was
Rezoning, not the Snowden rezone, Snowden rezoning.
just talking about the rezoning.
Okay, so you don't need us for that?
Commissioner Christopher put it on, so I just made the comment. It was Snowden rezoning, not the Snowden rezone. That's a quasi judicial act.
If you have time, I think you might have things that are in your knowledge bank to add to that, if you
Well,
don't mind sitting
stick
in.
around.
Okay.
If the board likes, I can discuss it right now and it may not take more than a minute.
We may as well not take their time. I appreciate it.
What's that?
I appreciate their time, so they're here, so that would be great.
I put this on the agenda so that I could potentially make another motion for a moratorium in that township and range. But since then, we've had discussion on the minutes, and I feel that making said motion at this time, while it would be proper and it would be in order, I fear that it would come to the same conclusion as the last. So I will refrain from making such motion unless one of the commissioners gives me a thought that there might be a second vote.
Scott, do you have any information from your side of planning and zoning?
Did you receive the email? Yes, everybody received the email, it looks like.
But only because the issue came up, I'd looked into moratoriums and sent some of the information on what's required if there was. It does look like there's a possibility to do a moratorium. It's a limit of 60 days and there has to be before you can have a public hearing, it has to have findings with it. I think then it can be up to 6 months for a moratorium without another hearing to renew it, or a code or a work plan to resolve the issue to the extent possible. I don't know what the county's history is on moratoriums. Generally for moratoriums in my past, they're related to a change in state law that maybe the local jurisdiction isn't ready for, like some of in Oregon as the marijuana rules and some other things like that, psilocybin, where we had to react very quickly. And sometimes there was a time that we are not ready for this, we're doing a moratorium, or a public health and safety issue. But that's not set in stone. I didn't see that in here, but that's typically what I'm used to for moratoriums.
Okay.
So I would say that this is, my idea for this is not a whole lot different than the idea when I came up with the solar moratorium. Is I do believe we are going to potentially address some of the issues that citizens have with our current zoning issues. Just like we would have eventually with solar, 4 years from now when we get done with the comp plan. But that doesn't preclude development from now to then. So just like with the solar, it required a moratorium, which required public hearings, then required findings of fact. The first moratorium failed and the findings of fact said it wasn't needed. The second moratorium passed and the findings of fact said a permanent solution was needed, and then it got forwarded to the planning commission. The findings of fact are done after the public hearing. I do agree with the letter that if we make a moratorium, that does not preclude any potential permits that are already in place. They are grandfathered in under the old rule. So it's just a matter of whether the board thinks that the citizens' issues in that area should be addressed now, or as we go through the planning process over the next 3 years.
Jake, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm just preparing to respond.
And for me, I'm glad you brought those because for me, it was a bit of a void because I didn't feel there was enough information with the moratorium to make that decision. And I wanted to talk to our planner and I also want to reach out to legal. And I had suggested maybe a workshop, but this is working. And that is something that I need to know deeper about. I know there's no change in state law that's impacting us, making us move that. I was on planning commission and helped work through the marijuana moratorium at that time and understood that. but also the justification question. What is the justification for the moratorium? So I would need to know what those particulars really are.
I can
Right.
respond to one thing. Speaking to what Commissioner Christopher brought up in terms of finding of fact, the RCW states, if the legislative body does not adopt findings of fact justifying its action before this hearing, then the legislative body shall do so immediately after the public hearing. And so when I was speaking the other day, it was in order to make a moratorium that removes or rescinds somebody's rights to to a quasi judicial action. From my perspective, you would need to have those findings of fact, like you're speaking of resources or what is the purpose for it before making said action. It is one thing to adopt a moratorium that does not allow you to do something, whether it's subdivisions or something else. Because that's an administrative action, when you go through, a short plat or anything else. For a legislative, a moratorium that eliminates an entire section of RCW for site-specific rezones that goes through a separate process. That's what I was getting at. I don't know how you would create that in the first place.
If I may clarify. The findings of fact can be done before the public hearing or after the public hearing. It doesn't have to be done before the motion is made. And the argument last week, or the week before, or whenever it was that I had to bring findings of fact in order to make the motion. The law, as you just read it, says we have to have findings of fact before the hearing or after the hearing. I would certainly hope a board wouldn't come up with findings of fact before they heard from the public. So I would certainly hope they would do it after the public hearing. But that does not preclude you from making the motion or for a moratorium.
What I'm looking for, and I understand finding of fact and is the justification. I think that's a good word for me. Before I make a decision on a moratorium, I need to know what your justification is for that moratorium. Those would be the thing I'm asking for.
My justification is I am a representative of the people, and the people in that area would like to have their concerns addressed because they believe that the zoning is outdated and needs to be updated long before the comprehensive plan is ever done. That is my justification.
But there's no land use planning or physical reasons or anything that you can bring forward. What is the harm that's being incurred? Why we need that moratorium is the question I'm asking. Because I don't want to be faced every time I turn around with somebody in an area that says, I want a moratorium, but we don't have justification why for that moratorium. Just because somebody wants something doesn't mean that it's justified. You have to have physical reasons to pass something so crucial as a moratorium, because that also throws Klickitat County into a position where we pass something without justification and we've done harm to the neighbors. We have to stand in the middle. We have to do what's right for everybody. So in order to do that, I have to know what that justification is.
Madam Chair.
There was a lot of implicating or implying things in that statement
No.
that I won't even try to rebut. But I believe the majority of the citizens of the area that are calling for the moratorium believe that the comprehensive plan has not been updated and this board has failed to protect them. And that is what they would like to see addressed.
Madam, I would like to follow along your thoughts, and I didn't feel like you were making implications. You're asking questions, and that is how do we justify it? And would the justification be on a site-specific rezone?
Yes.
A rezone does, in its essence, not create harm because it's a non-project specific action. You're not building a house. You're not using the resources. You're just allowing people to go through the process to then do something. Or allowing that right in order to do it. Because if there were harm, say it was water, and I'm just using this as an example, there's not enough water. the Board of County Commissioners has multiple options. Number one, they could pass a moratorium because there's no water in the ground. So no one should receive a building permit because we can't prove that there's going to be potable water without causing a harm or an impact on your neighbor. We've dealt with this in an area of Centerville, well, not Centerville, High Prairie, where the board required that anybody who would like to drill a well in this very broken area needs to drill to a certain depth. And that would put you into a different water table, which means you're not water mining and causing harm and impact on your neighbors whose wells are continually declining. That is one way in which you can mitigate those situations. If you're trying to stop harm in the area of Snowden, well, you would do like a moratorium on any building permits, or you would do a moratorium on any subdivisions. You wouldn't do the moratorium on rezones because that's a non-project specific action. You're just creating, in essence, allowing people the right to do something. And so that's where I'm trying to understand where the harm could be on creating a moratorium in such an instance.
Well, and to rely back to the idea that the comp plan is the justification, for me became a problem last week when we were talking, because that's countywide. That impact is countywide. And if we only do one zone, then basically we're doing favoritism for one section above everybody else, if comp plan is the justification. So for me, I needed more specific water, some kind of degradation in their area, buildings. I just need what specifically it's for and the justification.
Chair Zoller, may I?
Yeah.
I did do a site visit with several members of the council out there, and I don't want to speak for them. The reasons that they raised had to do with water was the primary one, but also fire hazard and fire evacuation were the main reasons they brought up. But I would assume if they're petitioning, they would need to bring those issues to you that they are specifically concerned with. And I appreciate the point about rezoning versus rezone, because it is not about the current rezone before us, but the rezoning in the future.
And I would add that we've received all the emails from them that state water and fire. And so the board should be aware of their concerns.
And I believe the board is acutely aware of the concerns of water. That's why, the Board of County Commissioners prior to us embarked on a very expensive and extensive water study throughout Klickitat County. The board has taken on wildfire and had many discussions on wildfire and CWPPs and everything else we can do to address the concerns of the communities over the years. And I share those same concerns. We've had fires within Klickitat County last year, the year before. Every year we have fires, and it's brought to the forefront. The question that I have is a moratorium the most appropriate action in order to address those type of concerns? Or is it through larger planning process? And does a moratorium create the relief that is being sought by the community?
Well, and we did receive emails, and we have been. This is an ongoing conversation with the community. And so I reached out because I wanted to prove some of the things. Not that it isn't true, not that people aren't impacted, but as I understand from Department of Health, we don't have a formal situation where somebody has complained of lack of water, where their well has went dry. There's nothing on record. So we would have to research that more and see if that's an impact, and then it can go on the list.
But I would say, like, you have your site specific issues. A well could go dry, and 20 feet away, you could have another well that doesn't go dry that has a lot of, water in it. Putting a moratorium over entire townships based on anecdotal evidence or the fear, I don't know how you could rationalize that. But I hear where you're coming from. And we have, especially in Klickitat County, for the planning to know, we have varied geography with very fractured basalts that you have areas where people have had to drill deeper. You have had areas where we are water mining on the east end of Klickitat County, knowingly water mining on the east end of Klickitat County. And then we have areas that we're concerned with. I have, in all my years in the for the county working in natural resources, we had multiple wells up in the Snowden area. None of the wells that we were measuring ever went dry. And for the most part, they all have their yearly 3-year decline, and then they come back up because Snowden gets a lot more rain than Centerville or Goldendale or anywhere east. I'm not saying that there are not wells that have had to be deepened. But what I can say is that from my experience, a lot of the issues that we have with wells going dry is because somebody else put in a well next to you or around you in the same body of water and didn't fully case it. And so you just drained one aquifer to the next.
Right, but this brings me back to why I said this could be a quick discussion, because I don't think my seatmates are interested. Again, not speaking for you, it doesn't seem like you're interested at this time with the evidence that's been presented anyway. So I have no further discussion.
Well, and Snowden is my district, and I have heard from the people, and I have reached out to the chair of their board, and we've had long conversations that I want to work through this, and he understood that there's a process. We need to find out the justification and then go back and present them what we have. So I would like to continue to think about it, but proof it and make sure that this is what the right thing to do is.
Our agreement from the minutes from the previous that we just adopted, the board agreed to schedule a workshop to discuss the comprehensive plan. And so I think I'm hearing where Commissioner Christopher is coming from, and he wants to address the citizens' concerns. I think a moratorium would cause a lot of work for staff in order to potentially address those concerns or not address those concerns. But my goal is to focus on the comprehensive plan and beginning that process and getting that update done. We are entering Q2 of 2024, and I would like, and I know that staff has talked about working behind, getting the stuff in the hopper so that we can start doing that. I would like to tentatively set a goal for the board or staff of Q3. We're going to start having those conversations about the comprehensive plan. Hopefully we've got a little bit of grant dollars in May that would be applied that we could direct staff time towards so that we can begin working on the comp plan update.
Well,
Sure.
Well, I appreciate the commissioner's comments of starting in Q3. I've been trying to start this since January 1 of 3 years ago, and it continues to be getting kicked to the next quarter. So I am not in favor of waiting a whole nother quarter before we have a workshop. But if this board wants to continue the past strategy of kicking this can down the road, it can.
And processing through what you said, Commissioner Anderson, I agree. I don't see the justification for a dire emergency where we need to pass an immediate moratorium. And I do agree the work that the planning director is moving into is going to bring us the answers for these kind of things. And so putting the money where it's best spent and doing our due diligence and allowing you the bandwidth to choose that work and when you move forward and when you've got your contractor in place, I think we're on track and we're moving forward. And I don't think I need to mess with that.
And in response to that, I don't feel that this board has ever tried to kick the can down the road.
Thank you.
This board has had these conversations numerous times, but we've also been facing headwinds with losing staff by not being able to hire long-range planners, by losing the planning director, and then also having very important things that we were also dealing with at the time, like COVID for the first year and a half while I was served on this board. That stopped a lot of the in-person meetings that a comp plan update is going to be. And then there's just the regular everyday work that staff has to do in the planning department. We continue to pile on more work. And I remember the conversation that this board had is that we wanted our new director to come on board and not get swamped by the first wave. And the comp plan is a very large wave, and we wanted to be able to tread through that. And I wanted to thank him for offering to start front running that work so that in Q3 we can really kick off without, putting everything else aside.
And it was his idea. He brought it forward, which
And
was
it was
great.
his idea when he brings forward bringing dollars too, and I really appreciate
Yes.
that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I understand both sides, the frustration of not seeing things happen over time, but I also appreciate the acknowledgement of what the staff is doing. The speaker before us talked about, they had a week of, kindness and a week of gratitude. This has been my month of gratitude for the planning department because they're working so hard. They've got so much going on. I feel like I'm more of a burden than a help at this point to their actual day-to-day work. And so I'm trying to get over that hump and start being helpful to them as well. But I just really appreciate what they've done. And I know it's been tough to keep up with everything that's been on their plate.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And I think there's, with or without a moratorium, there's the process. And hopefully if there's another zone change, I'll go through a public process where the council, the community can get involved, and we'll do our best to make sure we, address every issue that's brought up through that process.
Yeah, because with these processes, the holes will show up and then we can take care of them as we go.
Yeah. Well, thank you for letting us butt in.
Thank you. Good job butting in. Thank you for your help. So I think we had an add-on of a congressional direct spending letter of support.
We have 2 letters of support.
That's right. There's
We have one letter of support that was designed so that we could set our priorities for our federal legislative delegation that we'd talked about, and staff worked diligently to produce a letter that puts not in priority, but the airport and the White Salmon Assisted Living Facility, so that we can send that off. And then we have a separate one that's just a letter of support from the Board of County Commissioners for the White Salmon Assisted Living Facility itself. One thing that I learned through the process, though, was the White Salmon Assisted Living Facility received congressionally directed spending 2 years ago, or 2022. And so as far as I know, they still haven't spent it. They're asking for more. So just, I want to be very clear we are asking for, in essence, the same thing again from the feds. And that's where we are putting our chips. And with that stated, if there's no issues, I would be happy to state that I support it and ask for concurrence from my seatmates. I don't think we need a motion.
I support both letters.
Yes, and yes from me.
And thank you to staff for working on those and getting
Those were complicated letters. Yeah. Yeah. The language that we kept putting out in that last meeting, that was tough. So good job for capturing that. Oh, gosh. Okay. And yes, and we passed by commissioner update. If I may, during this part, I would like to add an item to our workshop for Thursday. Is that possible at this time? Great. I'd like to add an item. I would like to have a serious discussion between the commissioners about your ideas, feelings, where we're at with the situation with the jail.
In short, I'm not interested in talking about the jail until I have factual evidence to make any kind of decision. I have a 2 o'clock with Mr. Julian, and then I have a meeting after. So I am going to have to step out.
Commissioner Christopher, before you step out, if we may, I know, Auditor Joby is, getting a response from, a company to look into the, not redistricting, but re-precincting the area. And she's looking for at least a verbal from us to move forward to get that going, because this is in essence, from her perspective, an emergency, and needs to get them under contract so they can get that work done, the background information done. We don't have the numbers, but we know we're gonna have to do it. And so I just wanted to get your take on it before, if you're not gonna be here for us doing that authorization, if you have any thoughts.
Well, there's two of you here. Now, if you can't get to a consensus vote on yes or no, feel free to give me a call. But with two of you here, I'd hope it would be able to move in one direction or the other.
That works.
I just wanted to give you the opportunity
Know
to,
what
your
she was
thoughts, so that
bringing.
at least we're taking it into consideration. 'Cause I know you got some.
I understand we have to do it immediately. But again, I don't have any information, so I'm not gonna vote yes on something without the information, so. If I can watch Zoom while I'm playing with the other Zoom, I will be happy to do.
Okay.
Well, I
So
know
we have a few minutes.
she had a 1:30, so we've got time. We can talk about
Yeah.
anything you want.
She was gonna try to get here as quick as she could before 2:30, so.
So on our pending list, we still have the Klickitat County Public Corporation. We have the coroner, WSU Services, the Dallas Port Wastewater, the noise ordinance, enacting animal control. I don't know why that's the same. Updating policies and department protocols for emergency closures, and the burn ban policy for the Elk Meadows to be
Yes.
grandfathered in or not. And then anything else that you had. In terms of adding, I know you brought it up, so I wanted to touch with that first. The sheriff's discussion.
We just have not had a discussion between the Board of County Commissioners. And we get lots of calls, and we just have not, I think we've got to address things as the board. We've got to talk about us as a board. It's a hard discussion.
I don't want to disagree with you at all. And I agree that the board needs to have a position. I know that each of us are looking into different possibilities and matters, and we need to have a coming together.
We need to start sharing.
And we need to share that information out. I think right now, with the touchiness of the subject, we can, whatever information that we get, we can send to staff, and then staff can distribute that to the others for background information. And I think that would be great. I would hate to have a discussion without the sheriff present. I saw how the sheriff responded this morning to your softball pitch of trying to create that connection, and I don't want to step on the sheriff's toes. I'm sure the sheriff's under a lot of stress. And I don't want to move forward without making sure we're building a big tent.
And for me, that tent's a little bigger because we are human, and what we're hearing and what our phone rings for is humanity. And I think we need to not just consider the parameters of the legalities and who we are as electeds. We need to kind of take that out of the picture and talk about the best way that we all can get together to make sure we ensure public health and safety from a human level. And so that's a very different conversation. It's almost, it's tough to separate this out because the public needs to understand how we feel as humans, but yet where our constraints are as commissioners, but we can't just sit back with constraints and not have the conversation. We're gonna have to move forward in a way. Is it possible, working on this as the 3 different commissioners, is that legal for us to share information with staff and then they send it to, that's not ex parte if we do that? I mean,
So at any time, you can send something like, I get an email and I send it to the BoCC and then the BoCC forwards it to my seatmate. So I'm not communicating directly with you. Nothing comes back. So it's
Okay.
sending information for your
what you'd like to
information.
do or where you see it.
Usually it's just this is the information. It's not, this is what I want to do. It becomes a meeting if you respond back to the individual or it goes back to them. And it's same thing with department heads. Department heads have to be very careful about, well, this is what Commissioner Christopher said, and then creating that ex parte communication.
Well, and I understand that it can be done that way, but I can see where our public needs to understand too, where we are all personally with this, who we are and where we are and how we see moving forward.
I thought that you did a great job this morning during public comment, showing the humanity and the human side of, we feel, we hear it, we know, we see it, we feel it, and we want to be a part of the solution. We have a few triggers that we can pull, but those triggers are very large triggers that would have unintended consequences that we have to be very clear we know we're willing to accept, and that we know what those consequences may or may not be. And I can be honest, I don't know where that is yet. So, having the conversation about showing the humanity side, absolutely. I feel for anyone who's ever had their rights violated by any government or feels that could be occurring. I want to always protect people's private property rights, personal property rights, and personal rights. I also have to be cognizant that we have another elected that we don't have any control over, that they made it very clear that we don't have any control over. And I want to be cognizant of that. If we were to pull one of these levers, there are many departments that need to be a part of those discussions and those decisions. And I don't want to do that in a vacuum. Absolutely not. I also want to make sure that we have all the facts. Before ever doing that. And I'm also trying to say as much as I possibly can, while also making very clear that I'm doing everything I can to not add liability to the county at the same time.
And I think to move forward, that's a hard thing too, because how do we get the facts?
So my first thought on that is, whenever we have any issue, whether it's the bridge or anything else, previous boards, we gave a lot of freedom to the commissioner that was tasked with investigating or looking into it or working on something, because the board used to be very cohesive for decades. And if somebody had that on their plate, go ahead, you do that. It's kind of like with the airport. Go ahead, you do that. I don't want to look over your shoulder. I've got enough things. In this instance, I know as chair, and I'm so sorry you're chair this year, that's where I feel that this would belong, is with you working on it, coming up with, working with staff, working with directors, department heads, other electeds to come up with hopefully our county's response. And I want to give you at least my blessing that go forth and do good work, and I trust, and I know you've been doing that. And, I've been working on my side, like I brought up with the healthcare authority and the things that are kind of in my wheelhouse with behavioral health. And thank you for being allowed to do that. but this is getting much, much larger.
Okay.
But I want to give you that ability to,
Well, that gives me a starting point of some things I can gather, but I also would like to hear back, and we'll make sure Mr. Christopher's invited to send things back for just facts and things that you have going forward.
Yeah.
Information that you want to share. So we'll just cooperate that way for right now. That works for me. So I will not add that this Thursday. Come save us.
we're burning time and not in a good fashion right now.
Maybe a
You're early, thank goodness.
So I was able to connect with the contractor I referred to earlier about looking at our precinct files and making changes and adjustments. They were able to get back to me with a not to exceed price. It's a time and materials contract with the not to exceed $2,100. Right? That was kind of, yeah, I was thinking it would be a much larger number.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
And they can meet my,
Can they open a book for that price?
Do it quick.
they do something with the shape files and the topographical map, and
They
I
can
don't know, they
overlay
work their
'em.
magic, but, and they can meet our deadline of having that information all put together by the 29th. So, what I'm asking for is permission to go ahead and go down that path and tell them, yes, go ahead and get started without waiting to have to go through all of the contract review process, which will delay us at least a week, if not 2.
I don't think we have the time to delay. I don't want to declare an emergency or anything else, but we all know the time constraints you're under, and I want to say thank you for being on top of this. I can't say that all the other counties that are affected are probably in the same place. And thank you. So for looking at this, I would trying to find the way to do it without stepping on the prosecutor's toes or anything else on a contract, but for $2,100,
yeah.
The peanut gallery in the back is saying do it, so.
Well, and I believe it's a personal service, which would it doesn't have any statutory requirements for procurement.
And did you check with the PA on that? Did you have a chance to talk to the?
I have not had a chance to talk
Okay.
to the PA.
Would you, I guess, Commissioner Zoller, would you be okay to me making a motion that would allow the auditor to move forward so long with the buy-off of the prosecuting attorney's office?
Do you want me to, was that your motion?
No,
Okay.
I'm just asking before I make a motion. I try
Okay.
not to just start with a motion. It doesn't usually turn out very well for us.
Point of
Start
order.
telling you no.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I would, do you know the name of the company?
Flow Analytics.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to move forward with a contract with Flow Analytics. This is a verbal, to move forward with a contract with Flow Analytics for the auditor's office of a not to exceed budget of $2,100, so long as the prosecuting attorney agrees as well.
And I will step down in second. Any discussion?
I just want to be clear, I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes with this motion. We're just trying to get this done and get this moving so that you can get everything you need done. And great job for keeping it an extra 0 below what I thought it was going to be.
Oh, yeah, no, I thought we were talking tens of thousands.
Especially with the time frame.
And I hope they're not listening.
Well, the motion was for not to exceed budget, so now
Yeah,
they're
so
stuck.
That's it. And the PA is available on his computer, I believe. He's
Okay.
going to have a training session, so he might
So,
see your requests.
and then, you know,
He approves contracts as to form.
right.
So
Right.
You
So,
know,
so we'll still have to sign the contract next week. So.
Or as soon, I mean, I will, as soon as I get done here, I'm gonna make a phone call and say, yes,
Okay.
how do we move this along? So I will get it to you just as fast as I can.
And then
but-
with that for discussion, I would like to make certain. I'll get to that. I would just like to make certain that if the contract doesn't come till Thursday or Friday, staff will find a way to get it on the agenda for our adoption next Tuesday. Even if it comes on Friday, we at least we know it's there. We'll build it into the agenda.
Okay.
Right, staff?
All
Thank you.
those in favor?
Hold on, we got a hand
Oh,
up.
there he is. Okay.
It's still in discussion, I hope. I
Yep.
missed the majority of the presentation, so I hope it all works out. I will abstain from this vote, but I am here.
I can catch you up real quick. I mean, it was down and dirty, easy peasy, if you'd like the Cliff Notes
If
version.
everybody doesn't mind waiting, that's fine. If you can do it quick, I'm good with it.
The company can meet my deadline. Wow, now I'm echoing. Of the 29th, and it's a not to exceed 2,100.
And that's
to look at all of our precincts and tell us their opinion on how we should split those so that we're conforming with the new legislative boundaries.
Can you ask them if they sell trucks too? Because that sounds like a pretty good price. So see if they sell vehicles. And I have no problem with it, but as I wasn't, it sounds all good to me, and I would probably vote yes if I sat through the whole thing, but I will abstain because I wasn't listening to the whole thing.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Got more now? Oh, aye. I thought you can say aye something. I was waiting.
No,
It's like
I
a
was saying
pause.
aye. You said all in favor.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passed.
Don't forget abstentions.
And yes, we have 2 yes and 1 abstention from Mr. Christopher. Motion passes.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you for coming so early. That was awesome.
Okay,
Anything
well,
else?
we are down 1 commissioner. I think we have done plenty of damage for the day. And if let me see what we got. Do we not have a workshop? Somebody was mentioning we had a workshop.
Yeah, why did I think there was one Thursday? Somebody said?
There is no workshop on the schedule because I have Washington County's insurance pool conference via Zoom on Thursday and Friday.
I'm just making sure we don't have anything that we're going to that all of us
You
could be
guys
at.
don't have anything scheduled.
Okay.
Wait a minute, I'm asking
Oh.
staff.
Our next workshop would be April 18th.
Okay.
Did you cancel it? Because a lot of people think there is one tomorrow. There's 4 or 5 topics.
There was March 21st is when we had our workshop.
Oh, that's true. You got me off track.
You, just for the record, I was including you in the peanut gallery.
Now, isn't he the penalty box?
Okay, Madam Chair, clearing up that, I would make a motion to adjourn the regular business meeting of the Board of County Commissioners.
I'll second.
Great. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Motion carries.